5 minutes for monetization because we're professionals now.
Woo!
Because look at we have a whole new crew. The podcast,
The whole new
officially,
crew, all of us
today from here on out. The 4 of us. We're gonna do this every weekend. We're gonna get together.
Oh man.
And say, hey everybody.
That's a long time.
That's a whole bunch of bullshit. Welcome to the podcast.
That's a very long time.
Professional. It probably sounds like a fucking friggin' tin can.
All right, put all the tags on. You're good.
No, I mean, for the on YouTube, we're not supposed to do that in the first 5 minutes.
I don't care.
We gotta make some room.
I don't give a shit.
I'm your buddy CP, hanging out in the darkness.
Yeah, Lumen in the corner.
And with always
The corner Lumen.
the Viking boy, man.
The Viking boy.
BD.
I love that superhero.
What do you do?
What do you do? BD next to JD. We got the Slater in the house. And we got the Storm of Iron. First time I met this.
We got the
amazing
dude.
He's like super nice, so like it's gonna maybe balance out. Get some niceness over here. Cynicism bookends here. We're bringing a wild show. We don't even know what the fuck this
Pretty
is
spot
about.
on, actually. Cynical.
Cynicism bookends. All right.
Cynicism bookends, and welcome
You gotta
once
market
again
those now.
to the Ram full live experience.
To the full
I have a
live
blanket on. I try to get these guys to look like comfy, but hey man,
No, I
look
felt
at this,
weird,
look at this, look at this.
And I threw my sneakers
I'm
on.
Max fucking Headroom in here. Sorry,
Max
if it's
Headroom.
streaming
Max-
from
Max
1996. This is like those old MIDI videos. Anyway, what are we talking about today, there, Captain?
We are talking about, we're going to be sort of going across sort of all of our favorite things, trying to mix it all together a little bit. I'm just a fan of like stories in general and telling like really big, sweeping things where you can
Odysseys.
Odysseys, yeah, where things where you can learn more about yourself, which is part of why I did do this podcast to begin with. And then Joe is a writer and a big fan of stories, so I wanted to include that in there as well. And then Storm of Iron here is incredibly well versed in like movies, TV, trivia, like
Stuff.
a little bit of just stuff.
What are your credentials, sir, to be on this podcast?
I would be the Jeopardy category potpourri.
Potpourri.
Sweet, man.
Oh yes, potpourri. And CP here.
Although I don't
Also,
smell like potpourri.
also a mixture of all of you guys,
Yeah.
like lots of movie knowledge. Like we found that just chatting last night, we'll start a movie and then we'll like list the entire cast between the both of us and then proceed to talk about the movie. We have that kind of vibe. Joe, love this guy. We got to have a car ride down, chatted it up. He blah, 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 blah. I'm Star Foxing.
Blah, blah.
He read some of his newest book. I'm honored to hear that stuff. Cool stuff. I did some freestyle drawing. Your boy always CP, always trying to draw and make stuff. Same with this guy. But it's nano bit.
We're in the thick of
National Novel Writing Month.
And I've kind of botched that on my end, but I have signed up for the. I'm not gonna shit on myself. I've signed up. I sat in front of a computer. What to write, but I actually thought of some really good ideas just by challenging myself to create a cover and think about it a little bit more. And Joe, he's like a champion of getting, and he used the structure. Don't you pretty much write your whole book in at least rough form in November?
Yeah, I usually finish the full first draft of my novel with like a week and a half to spare, typically.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I do none of that.
No writing ever, no short stories, no Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that. Where
Even that I wing it.
all right,
I don't make backstories until I'm actually in the game.
so improv, kind of like feel the moment.
I'm reactionary. I'm not like, yeah. We're not gonna sit there and pen out an entire life history of a character that has the potential of being scrubbed out of the game in the first couple of turns. We're not gonna do that. That's not gonna be a thing.
That's true, man. That's smart. Like even when I make art, I used to work from like one corner of the page, and you get one part perfect, and you just down. Your hand wouldn't want to smudge into the work. But the problem is, if you ever run into a issue
Google
where that eye's off, but no, I just spent an hour drawing that eye. No, what you want to do is I've learned since then, rough everything in and see how it goes.
Don't fully commit.
See what's there, and be like, no, I gotta move this. And the same goes, I'd say, for like writing and stuff. Joe just puts it down, he gets everything down, and then you have something to work with. Having something kind of stuck in your head is problematic for the creative process. When you do that, like that's why you probably have this real cool vibe, like all hung up on dealing with the details and worrying about the end. I'm in it.
You don't sweat the small stuff.
Cool, yeah.
And most of the time, you just wing it.
I had a cup that said
Like
that.
everything,
I
just
think
wing it.
I think I broke it, and I was really upset.
Here's Joe's work coming in. We got the link for NaNoWriMo, and then we have the stuff to Joe's
Did you
body of work there.
How was your nano?
I am at like maybe about. I haven't updated it.
You're like
but,
$4,000 right now.
Yeah, I'm probably more closer to 6K now.
I think.
But I haven't updated it.
I don't think you're actually posting the link.
Oh, because I'm doing it as me and not Rice and Lang.
Exactly.
Heck.
Yeah, and you haven't modded yourself, so
Right.
I know. Yeah, he's just
posting deleted links.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Deleted.
If you guys really give a shit,
We'll find it.
ask us.
I'm
Get in our Discord, and later
I'm pretty much everywhere. I mean, everyone here is Discord. I'm on Twitter, previously known as X. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Cause
See, I couldn't deal with that. The switch to X. I don't even want to say that. I just deleted it.
Oh, that's why I said that in a stupid voice, because I know how.
I know it's
unfortunate in that it's just the only thing I ever get out of that platform is the graphic designer bots that then follow that platform, then find their way to the Twitch platform, and then they start doing the, hey, we've noticed that you could use some updated art and stuff. We offer all kinds of things. And it's like block, delete.
oh man.
It's awful. It's so frustrating. And that's one of the biggest things now is bots advertising for graphic arts.
I like that the bots with the AI now are just making shit up. Like they're just making up fake products, like crazy glasses, and they're like, "Do you want this?" And it's almost like it's just generating stuff that we can 3D print to see if there's hype behind it. It doesn't even exist. Like, here's a concept of something. Are you guys into it? It's a pretty weird phenomenon. What had
on the other side of the coin, though, the bots that typically advertise for, hey, do you want some AI stuff? Usually there's a lead up to it. They don't just they either instantly dive in with the promo, or they kind of, hey, how are you? And you know what? Honestly, I'm kind of okay having a nice, delightful conversation, even if it is a bot. If you're cool with me, I'll be cool with you. But cross that line, bot. Cross that line. We're gonna strike you down. Done and done.
You know, we're leaning into like the controversial topics of AI here, and I don't want to go too tangential on my end, but I do want to mention something real quick. So I listened to like Rock the Bells radio, like old school hip hop and stuff, and they were talking about AI just a couple weeks ago, and like Ice Cube's, he's wealthy and shit, and he's like, I'm gonna lawyer up, I'm gonna take people down, like you can't take my voice, you can't recreate it, this is mine. And there's that fight of like, what's mine, what's the IP, what's a remix, and this and that. And there was some controversy in the DJs, the hosts were saying like, yeah, this is problematic, they're taking the artistic voice, whatever. But the other day, DOC, who's an old school rapper whose voice is now shot, he has decided to use AI as a tool, owns his own voice, he doesn't have it anymore, he's going to write his own stuff and then use AI to recreate how he used to rhyme, put out new stuff.
That's actually kind of wild.
So his voice broke.
Yeah, so he's using it as a tool to overcome a physical stop so he can get back into it. And I was like, well, and then they were all like, that's kind of amazing. So you can start to see like the negative and the positive, like as a tool. Like, yeah, if people steal from us, which they have, but if there are regulations on this stuff as a physical tool, like I say a Photoshop, I've been really like having mixed perspectives on what AI is going to be in the future. Polarized, man. Like artists are like, let's burn it down, and then Matt and I have always been kind of like meandering about it.
It's a tool.
And then for a lot of programmers I know, they're like, this has cut my day in half. So like it's gonna hurt people either way. Like,
But it's a prime example of technology getting ahead of
society.
the rules and regulations that govern, ownership and property and the rights to what is or what does belong.
Yours.
No, that's mine.
Oh, that is.
Wait, I have the girl one.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
that was mine.
So, like,
I thought it worked up.
The girl.
The thing I want to touch on about that is
Fucking hell,
that
sorry.
it was during
I'm
the
gonna gender this cup. La Luna.
during that whole TikTok ban thing that was going through Congress, there were these old guys being like, how do we can TikTok buy my wife's pantaloons from the internet? So, like, this old guy was losing his mind about TikTok, like he had no clue. It's like, that's why technology is getting ahead of legislation, because they're all 100.
Yeah, they're all breaking up in the middle of speeches and like download 99%.
That goes down a whole other political branch of disconnect. But yeah, if you don't understand the technology, how can you then make rules about the technology?
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
And I feel like if we were to really dig deep in the history of all this stuff too, because as these technologies come up, there's always someone on usually people are putting it out there.
Yeah.
They're on the cutting edge just enough to where it's like, we're going to be the benefactors of this before they figure it out. So yeah, that's what's kind of happened. And
We need to elect Kit
oh yeah.
to understand.
What car was that?
What car was
Knight
Kit?
Rider, bro. Knight
I
Rider.
know, what kind of car?
voice? That was a Pontiac Trans Am. That was the
I had to break it.
that was the first that it was an early 80s, and when they just changed the body style.
Here we go. Watch him go. Okay.
I'm gonna intentionally stonewall you now.
No, but we
you
love
paved
it.
the way, and then
No,
no,
we love
but-
it, dude.
So the interesting thing about that car was the voice was provided by Mr. Feeney
I
from
knew
Boy
that.
Meets World, which is
Did you
fantastic.
guys know that?
Mr. Feeney, no,
Yeah.
I don't really have a clear image of Mr. Feeney. I didn't watch that often.
That show was amazing.
Yeah.
That show was fantastic, and that was the younger.
Oh, Mr. Feeney is?
I don't know.
Wasn't he just recently at a con?
I don't know shit about fuck, man.
Hey, you said it.
I don't.
You said it.
Matt is a
Take this
an
outside.
amazing
That's-
person to where
That's why Matt has all of us here to help him.
I think he lives in the movie Memento, where every 15 minutes it's just new life.
New
What did
world.
we just talk about?
Yeah.
15 minutes later,
He's
new
got
life.
tattoos all over his chest to remind him of this stuff.
And a brick of Polaroids that he has to look through.
Yeah.
every
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Or this is kind of like 10-Second Tom from that wonderful Adam Sandler movie, 50 First Dates.
Oh,
Hi, I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom.
His
Hi, I'm
memory
Tom.
resets every 10 seconds. Hi, I'm Tom.
So you could be worse off. We maybe get a day out of you.
And we,
Maybe it's a Groundhog Day situation with you.
At least you're not
it's
like
more of a
Phineas
groundhog
Gage.
thing. Well, it's sort of
Oh,
it's an opposite groundhog.
Yeah.
No, I don't have
Shout
to
out
do.
Phineas Gage.
It's not the same day
Mental illness
every
awareness.
day. It's a
Actually,
different. It's
That
a
was more
fresh.
brought on by like physical trauma than.
Oh,
Sorry.
usurped him. The moment he's talking, I don't know what happened there.
I'm used to
You
it.
could play that back. Phineas Gage somehow entered the room.
CP's on like a
And
CP will be on a
Solomon
roll.
Grundy fucking turned into you.
Longtime listeners of the show will notice that CP will be rolling
Sound like a
through
brother
his
or
whole
something, I don't
thing,
know.
Oh my god.
and then I'll be like, so and
Born on a
I
Monday.
want and like for like okay, and then he's on a different subject. I'm like, but all right,
Because Matt is the facilitator and the director. If you guys didn't know, of Rise and Mind, he runs the show. So we're gonna let him start it back up. Where are we in the deep dive with Phineas Gage yet?
Phineas
or are we
Gage?
still on Solomon Grundy?
We haven't even gotten to Broken Ground. This is the intro, my guy.
Storm,
I told you.
Storm Slater Viking sketch. Here we are.
Storm Slater.
What are we
Vikings.
talking?
Yeah.
What are we
So we-
doing? Let's-
so we-
His name is my name too.
Yeah, Storm Slater.
The people always shout.
Storm Slater Viking CP sketch. His name is my name too.
That's right.
Born on a Monday.
DP
Me
sketch.
too.
So we want to.
I was born, I think, on a
I don't
Wednesday.
remember.
What were you born on? I bet he doesn't remember. It wasn't
We're
yesterday.
not talking about that
Okay, thanks.
right now.
Director.
Right now.
Thank you.
Facilitator.
We can beat it up later if you want. So what I really
circle
want to
back
talk
to
about
that.
is
Do we have a memo board?
we haven't talked. We've been talking a while, and Joe hasn't had a chance to talk that much. I want to ask Joe to get us back on track. What is your
We're
favorite
totally doing
car
that again.
from a movie that was almost also a character?
Were we talking
Or
about
maybe it was
storytelling
actually
or did we
directly
get into
a character?
cars?
Well, it's
It
hard
was
for me
always
not
gonna be
to.
cars.
I mean, if you're talking about vehicle as like a character, I'm not really sure how to answer that. But I do know that in John Wick 2, he's driving that 71 Chevelle, Mike.
Yeah.
And I really like that car, but it's also my dream car. So as far as like car characters, I don't know. Maybe the taxi from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I was just
That's
gonna say,
true.
Benny the Cat.
Oh yeah.
Roger, let's go get some fucking drinks.
That movie was
Shout
a
out New
classic.
York.
That movie's a classic.
It's so good. CP and I were talking about it on the way into New Hampshire yesterday.
Yeah, I shouted out it was Zemeckis' film, and he did Back to the Future because most people
Yeah.
start to know Robert Zemeckis when he was doing
I
Forrest
really
Gump,
like Bob
but-
Hoskins. I like a lot, with the exception
Hoskins
of
is
Mario. I like him in. I like him in Unchained with Jet Li. That's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
When you hear his actual voice, you know, who knew Bob Hoskins was English most of our lives because he had one other voice other than his accent. He had the New York accent
Yep.
that he used for Eddie Valiant.
So Matt,
and
does the Benny
Mario.
count from Who Framed?
Benny counts. Like the examples I'm kind of looking for just to sort of get a base level. My favorite car that was almost as much a character as the other characters was the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Like without the DeLorean in that film, I feel like it wouldn't have been the same. Something about it.
yeah, like what I mean, you know, cars of that time and era. Like, is there anything that could be comparable to, you know, become this like iconic time machine? It'd be
Well,
goofy kind of futurism.
It's the fact that the car itself was so ahead of its time. It was a completely different style of chassis. It was a stainless steel body. It was
so
a rear engine.
what's a
car.
chassis?
Yeah, but-
Like what everything is sort of
so
bolted
talk
to.
to
Okay.
me like I'm 5.
So in
Because I am kind
Is
of.
that Lass's brother? Chassis?
Chatsy Lassie.
Chassis? Timmy fell in, Mike fell in the well.
yeah,
Chassis Lassie.
we went down a rabbit hole.
No,
on this
I
one.
get it. I
But the fact that like it didn't actually use a traditional ladder style frame or
Sure.
that was kind of the era that the unibody construction was coming around from.
Jelly beans and coffee.
It had like a single backbone with almost like a wishbone style configuration. So when you're looking at the car and you're looking and seeing how low slung both Doc and Marty are when they sit in it, it's because there's actually no frame that's around, like underneath them to prevent the.
The floorboard's right on the ground.
So
Pretty
that's
much.
why we never saw them in New England, basically.
Huh.
It's like you would make it down one road and rip the fucking.
Well, it was a very low slung car to begin with. It was also dog ass slow because it was underpowered with, I think it was a 2.8 liter V6 engine, but that's beside
And
the
then they
point.
did all the stainless steel and
Yeah.
that was a
It was a heavy car,
It's a bad
and
move.
it was significantly underpowered. But
So it's just gadget, like it was all.
No wonder he
flash
couldn't
and
get it to 80 very fast.
no, there was 88 miles an hour was like a dream for one of those things.
So that's
But-
kind of the joke, right? Like the fact that it would take.
well,
or
looking
could-
back on it now, it's kind of the joke. But the fact that like the car itself, there were some fantastic technical ideas there. And if you've ever seen one of those cars actually painted before, outside of the stainless steel,
That's
it
I have.
completely changes the visual aspect of the entire automobile.
You know, I've
Because-
never seen that. I'm gonna Google it while you're talking.
Yeah, there's I've seen one at a car show where there was 13 DeLoreans lined up side
Wow.
by side by side by side.
Wow.
And this was just a regular Cars and Coffee event that I think it was the DeLorean group of New England or whatever it was.
That's a
had
very
showed up
specific
to.
group to be a part of.
Oh, it's a very, very specific group. And it's interesting, too, because there was a company that bought up all the old tooling for the DeLoreans, and they actually do
Bro.
repairs and retrofits.
I love the,
Wow.
I love the yellow one.
Yellow's
man.
cool on
Look
it.
up a yellow DeLorean Chevy, man.
That's
That's
interesting.
dope. There's
Wow.
a gold one. There's red. There's orange-ish. But yeah, that looks wildly different.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this fucking wild C-3PO gold. You can, that's
So as a baseline, like that's sort of the example. Like is there like Smokey and the Bandit had that Trans Am.
Hmm.
Yep.
And it's not. It could be cars that were literally characters, but it could also be cars that might as well have been
Like the movie cars.
like the movie car. Like
I've got it. So,
Ka-chow!
car doesn't literally have a personality.
Doesn't have. Well, it could.
I would
but,
say
yeah.
Dom's Charger from Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah.
That was like a pretty as dorky as Fast and Furious can be.
That was a movie that was basically centered around like, and it created an automotive culture. It created this whole frenzy of Fast and Furious rode on the cutting edge of a time when everybody was buying these cars to upgrade these cars, to do all this stuff to these cars, and it was a lightning rod for that culture. And it was very interesting because most of the cars that show up in that movie were just like, these are for close-ups, and they really never operated how they should.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy who actually has a warehouse full of these old cars and had restored them, and they'll show up on various different YouTube videos.
Do they go to conventions with them
Or
or like meetups or
usually you'll just see someone
Herbie.
who does like a
Herbie?
who does like a
love
tribute
Herbie.
car, and they'll bring it to a show or something like that. But yeah, Dom's Charger is iconic, and it was the one kind of continuing factor through a lot of those movies, because a lot of the other cars that surrounded that were all different cars. I mean, hell, you had a Local Motors Rally Fighter, which showed up in one of those movies, and you've got Lamborghinis and exotics and Japanese, skylines and things like that, and it's cool from a car standpoint. It's phenomenal, but I mean, it's cars in the realm of fantasy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's what it turned into.
But
Though the first movie or the first couple of movies were very much more grounded in kind of a reality, but
that's why the only ones I really watch are the first two.
Yeah.
Because after that, they turn into something else.
They went to
And
space.
yeah, they
It's
turn
so-
into caricatures
it got-
of themselves.
It got too ridiculous for me, and I would have accepted it if they were just like a bunch of street bros, running around in their cars. But it went so much deeper than that to some like Marvel kind of shit. Like, oh, we got to perform a heist, Dom. Like, oh, come on, dude.
shout out Kira in the background, repping the Rise and Mind podcast, digging up bones, digging deep every day.
The reason why I say Dom's Charger is because that car was a symbol of his relationship issues and his it was just a whole symbol of Dom's personal flaws.
Dom's
And-
Vin Diesel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just, when he gets into it, that's when he realizes, like, I'm not doing, that's when they're calling him over here.
Matt, host a show. Don't worry about the dog.
She won't bark if she can come over and just be.
So
here.
I just think that there's like
We're gonna have a
in that
podcast.
movie, as silly as that movie might come across, I think Dom's Charger is really a symbol of something deeper that other shows don't really put into like a vehicle. That car is more than a vehicle to drive in. Like Knight Rider is a really cool vehicle to run around in and do cool spy stuff with. But with
it doesn't have the emotion you're
Right.
saying that it's related to in the story.
right
Connectedness
it's
to
just,
the machine. too,
yes,
is a
and
different
like
thing.
Dom's not scared of anything. He's scared of this car though. But at the end of the movie, he don't give a fuck about being scared. He's not scared anymore. He just takes that car for a ride and he sends that bastard. And
I love the first one when he tail swipes the dude on the motorcycle, just
Yeah.
lays him out just by coming around a corner and just ices him. It's just like a baseball swing with a car.
So
Oh,
when
look at this.
I only ask because you probably know, when did Fast and the Furious come out? Like,
Good question. I can't
That
remember.
was
2001 or 2.
early
Yeah.
2000s.
okay, so I watched the first three. I don't remember any of this stuff really you're
Mhm.
saying. I remember they hijacked vehicles, like in the first one,
Mhm.
and then I watched Tokyo Drift. I think that was Paul Walker in that one. Or
No,
No,
actually,
it was not.
that dude went on to do a lot of other stuff. That was crap. What the hell's his?
I think drifting culture might have been starting around there, like Ken Block and things like that. Like
they tried to
shortly
capitalize.
after.
Drifting was huge, not here.
Yeah, and like Japan and stuff,
Yeah.
right? And like
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Let's see.
another example.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Supernatural?
No, I never got to see
Never?
that.
So,
I
yeah,
have a
the
car in a
Impala.
loot crate because they gave
Yeah.
you every piece of
The
garbage.
Chevy
I got that
Impala.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that-
and-
2001 was
Oh,
Fast and
There was an
Furious.
episode where it
Or
got
Burn
destroyed,
Notice.
right?
His Charger in Burn Notice.
Yeah, that thing was just a clapdown.
Oh my god,
You
I
could
love
actually-
that car.
There were certain online auctions where you could buy versions of that
they're
car.
never gonna get to me.
That was
I
like
love-
a
I
it was like a
love-
72 or a 73
Didn't see it.
Charger. It was the Coke bottle body stock.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just introducing like examples. Like, can you think of an example?
Yeah,
of
so-
cars that.
to what you guys said.
I'm a muscle car
So
nerd too.
I only watched the first three
Car nerd.
Fast and the Furious, and then I heard it like
Okay.
kind of fell off.
Lucas
And then-
Black.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it got really crazy, like when this director came in around like 5 or 6, and they became so ridiculous. Like people now love them for the over the top nature that they are, and now they get like 90% and stuff on like Rotten Tomatoes is it's dirt. But they had this fallout,
It's a cash cow.
and now
It's an
now
absolute
it's
cash cow.
killing it. So I'm interested to where those movies did go at this point, seeing that success. But for me, I do like muscle cars and things. So every time I see that, I'm like, that's badass. But like DeLoreans and like the 1959 Cadillac, that was the Ghostbusters, they hearse sometimes, but the ambulance, that kind of shit. Especially if you look at my aesthetic and my art, that kit bash thing where it's like very utility, where there are things hooked to things, hoses, stuff like that. I really love it. And one of the most recent impressive things that I like was the new Mad Max movie.
Oh yeah.
And if you've watched, speaking of studying movies, the documentary about how they built the cars, they're much like what you said. They're all extensions of their personality. Like this car with the double stack, and it's like, where would this kind of robust man like sit? And it's like, you know, it's all ego in this specific car, which I can't remember. But then it's like, well, let's just stack another one on top of
the
it. and make
Giga
it-
Horse.
Yeah.
In a world where one of something is so ultra scarce, the guy who runs the show has two of them.
stacked right
Yeah.
up. And it's
And
like,
I think those were old Cadillacs as well.
yeah.
And they were powered by twin
Still a lot more
502
control.
engines, and it did produce somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000.
they were
horsepower.
practically built, right?
Yeah.
These weren't CG things.
No,
Yeah.
those were
Yeah,
legit
even the
vehicles.
stunts.
So that's my thing. Like, I love the practical stuff. I like the old practical racing
It
movies.
just looks better.
Yeah, it's so
Holds
much
up
better.
longer.
But even the build of them, and like you said, the personality, they took each character and they're like, what would they have?
Yes.
And then they make this
That's a really good example.
this contraption, you know,
Well,
like stacked garbage.
like
basically,
Mel
you know?
Gibson's. What was that, Mike?
73 Falcon
Yeah, thank you.
XB GT.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
knew he'd know. But that car,
One of my absolute favorite cars.
when I was a kid,
Car knowledge.
I remember watching the Road Warrior is my favorite Mad Max.
Yep.
And watching
I've
Road
never
Warrior,
seen the Road Warrior.
and
Really?
I remember
Phenomenal movie.
The first
when
one
he
only, I
when he
think.
blows up that Falcon in that movie. That was the first time I saw a car blow up in a movie where I was like, "Oh my god, no!"
So we're about to go into the breaking ground segment, but I did want to touch on one that actually caused me to tear up when it died, and it's gonna all you are gonna think this is either stupid or childish or just sad.
Throw it out there, dude.
In the movie Onward that came out recently,
I didn't see it,
The
so I have no
fantasy,
opinion.
it's like a fantasy movie where
I know dude. I have 4 kids.
yeah, so you know.
I have like this really deep knowledge
So-
of kids movies lately.
I've always wanted
Fair
to
enough.
have a hippie van and have it painted fantastical stuff on the
I
side.
gotta get
right?
that air.
Guinevere.
Yeah,
that was the
Guinevere.
name of the
Yeah,
band.
yeah, and
Guinevere.
I legit teared up, and my friends I think I was going through a lot at the
So
time too.
he-
My
he
friends were like,
puts
"Are you
the-
crying?"
He puts masking tape over D for drive and does O for onward.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
so good. Yeah.
And yeah, that car gets destroyed in that, and it does it in slow motion, and it plays like
Mhm.
opera music as it does so. It's
So sad.
When I saw it in theaters, I remember actually being pretty bummed out about it.
It's because we loved the van
Yeah,
so much.
it was like an extension of the character.
Yeah.
Like,
The van that gets destroyed in the first Mad Max movie actually belonged to the director, George Miller.
no
Oh.
kidding.
And
Oh yeah.
a lot of their filmmaking was guerrilla filmmaking because they couldn't afford
Like
to.
the bikers are just a
They
group
were
of
bikers.
regular dudes.
No, they were bikers. They were legitimate bikers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, like regular dude bikers that they found.
Yeah,
that
they
did
had
shit.
to, they had to give them notes from the production company.
They
that
worked for
said
beer.
They worked that these individuals were actually working on a movie and they weren't there to cause problems. And it was just it was crazy. But
Yeah.
I think Mad Max is a perfect example.
I think that's a really good.
Bonkers
I
automotive
think we're
stuff.
going to land on Mad Max because that's every human being in those movies. Like, look at what was Humongous?
Yep, Lord Humongous.
His was like a whole, a power trip. He's got two not hostages but prisoners just packed onto the front of his car, just tied there until they die. Who cares if they die or not?
It was wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lord Humongous. Just walk away. That whole thing. Because he wanted them to abandon the oil refinery that they had.
Yeah.
Because they had the fuel, so therefore they had some semblance of structure and civilization and power. And the interesting thing about that was Virginia Hay from that Road Warrior was actually in Farscape, which
Okay.
Oh.
Series. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, she was the Painted Blue.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And they were, granted, they weren't in a car, they were in a living spacecraft called Moya.
I
But
love the spacecraft.
oh yeah,
It's biological.
Already.
yeah.
That's cool.
You guys ready to break ground?
Sure, man.
We can do that.
This will probably become like a very mic heavy segment because the way I want to break ground here, gonna be why do we get so emotionally attached to vehicles in life, in movies? Like
Mike had a rant about this last night.
yeah, like how does that
What
even
makes the car
start?
more personable?
Yeah, but how does it start too? Like is it when we're kids?
Well,
Like,
since he's the smart one,
Well,
he'll be able to add so much to it.
we're
Like,
all
No, with
like,
the car-
everyone's
with the car stuff.
Oh,
Well, let's start with the lesser.
I didn't mean to take
the
that so
dumber.
personally.
Let's start. Well, I'm with you, man. So
Plus, Mike's not on
we'll
the show.
start off a little
That's true.
bit. Ask the question again. We'll start dumb and give our dumb.
I wish I had a spotlight so I could be like,
dumb. No, I mean,
it just goes
honestly-
black except for the one.
CP wisdom of the day. You're
Drop some knowledge on us.
You're smart and you're stupid, guys. Because
both.
there's some area where you don't know shit. And there's some area where you know it all.
I don't know
And it's
shit
all
about
choice
fuck, man.
based on who you are. And that's the same thing with the cars.
Yeah.
Our identity, I love my car. I call it the Ram-mobile. Rides on mine because it's this beautiful orange, much like our shirts here.
We get attached to our own cars.
It's
That's
a
right. That's
Chevy.
something, yeah, we
It's
can
a
also-
Chevy. It's a utility vehicle. It works great for minor construction stuff that I do, art shows, whatever.
Joe, would you be okay swapping with me?
With it.
Swap seats?
Okay, but
Oh, here we go.
so
No,
we fucking
Look, I wanna be able
the cynical
to.
bookends.
Oh, well, we are still cynical bookends.
Oh, you want the bookend of the flannels? That's what's going
Yeah,
on.
thank
I see,
you.
I see what's
He
happening.
recognizes my
we
artistic.
stammered,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I was trying to say, motherfucker. Now you got all the red together.
No, you're doing great.
Goddamn Fucking, I'm not even gonna get into it. Anyway,
No, you're doing great.
So-
This is so that when I'm talking this way, I'm also
Keep
like,
your
including
cool.
them in the conversation easier. I feel like I'm looking away from Joe.
you don't have to explain it.
Okay.
You're the
Yeah.
director.
Thank you.
Anyway, so this car, the color really spoke to me. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
can we please get this? And it's so great.
That's a unique color. That copper burnt orange. That's a really cool color.
And people, like it's a gift and a curse. Like, if you don't want people to see you, they're gonna know you're around. If you do want people to see you, they're gonna know you're around. Like
Yep.
you become kind of iconic on the road. I also like it because it's the color orange is the color of carpentry. The road worker. Like orange, Home Depot,
everything.
whatever. And that's that says a lot about what I've done within my life in addition to art. But it also kind of gives you a free pass. Like if you just pull up on the side of the
Mhm.
curb, you put your 4-way flashers on. that's probably like a guy who works for the city. You know, you could kind of fake it till you make it. So I enjoy those things. But honestly, I own a lot of cars. I enjoyed my first car was a Subaru, and then I had a couple Fords, and I had one burn up. I rolled one on. It was wild times, and then I decided, not that Ford's bad, I don't want a Ford ever again because I had terrible problems. And then I got a Chevy, great car. Tried a couple like Nissan Saabs, tried the foreign stuff, and then I was like, all right, they're kind of expensive. Went back to a Chevy, and like for me, Chevy is just gelling. Chevy and Dodge, that's my vibe. Ford, foreign, not so much. And then you start to break it down and like, what does that mean, and how does that apply to your personality, utility, construction, everyman, whatever you want to figure out from it. And I think that's where I would gravitate in that personality. Color is a big part of it, but also just to represent, like, why would I drive a soccer van around and I don't have a family or something? Or you get what works for you, so it kind of helps define you too.
Practicality means personality.
Yeah, whether you feel it, because it's also representing your daily life and what's going to be functional for you. But at the end of the day, I'd love to have like some bright orange, Dodge Challenger or Charger or something. Like Chargers I like a lot. Even the new ones, as corny as they seem, I see them and I'm like, I'd get that in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And that would be my vibe. It reminds me of my dad. It's the colors. It's a time when things were thick and weighty, and I feel like things could be fixed and paired and
a little simpler.
So before a lot of the computer times, because I'm old enough to see the practical times where my dad taught me everything, but now I'm the only guy who can prime the furnace because it has a little computer gauge on it. And it's just it's gone too far. But yeah, I think that's part of it. It's your practicality, it's your personality, and it's changed radically over time. Have your cars changed radically?
That is part of like where my first car, reason I got so attached to it wasn't because of like anything, like it was all practical. It was so sturdy. It had a really good pickup and go. But it looked like a grandma mobile. But it was like one of the last V8s that you could get like in a sedan, like when they started to go more into the 4-cylinder or the 6-cylinder. And I was like, this car is like a muscle car with lace, like it's got like the doilies.
Yeah, I forgot. You just reminded me. I had a grandma. I had the Dodge Aries.
Mine was a Ford Taurus.
The Dodge Aries K car.
The K car. They called it the grocery getter.
The grocery getter.
And I bought it probably from some old lady. It had super low miles. But you know what? As corny as that car was, it was a great car. And
I once had a Ford Windstar, comfiest vehicle I've ever owned. It was like sitting in a lazy boy going down the highway. God, oh man. Now I was active duty at the time too, and I would actually, there were some shifts when I was in the military between times I was done with the day and then getting in extra early the next morning. I would literally just keep a pillow and sleeping bag in the back of it. No seats in the back, so you can just spend the night in it, get up, and be at work.
Nice.
So,
portable hotel.
Yeah,
So,
essentially.
So, Mike, why do you think we get attached? Where does it come from? Like, your opinion? Because there's no wrong answer.
In the grand scheme of things, what is the second most expensive possession in your life?
Oh, heck. I never even thought of it that way.
Second most?
Second most.
Yeah.
House is the first most expensive.
Housing or...
Your automobile is
okay.
typically your second most expensive expenditure.
And I think it's more important in a lot of ways to the house because it's the one that you have to bring places. So, like, if you're not wealthy, you're better off to probably get a nicer vehicle to bring around
something
areas,
dependable.
and
something...
go home to your shithole and it doesn't matter. Like, no one...
Like, is part of it because we spend so much time with it and it represents us as well? That's another thought I was having.
Well, it's status.
Yeah, sometimes.
If say you roll into some important place or party,
and status though,
and everyone's got like nice Cadillacs and shit and brand new cars, and you rolling in the K car, you're gonna feel like an asshole. Like
either that or you feel like a weird, super ironic kind of like no, I know what I got, and I'm totally gonna go with it. I'm gonna lean hard into this one. So
it's like the people who have what is That might be the only reason that was it called a Red Robin, the three-wheeled car, like from
The Reliant Robin
the
from
Reliant
the UK.
Robin. Was that the only reason people bought that? Because they're like, I'm just going to be ridiculous.
No, actually, that was due to insurance regulations.
Oh,
Yeah. So because of the drive wheel, and it was a three-wheeler, it fell under different insurance regulations, and
Cycle.
it wasn't the same as a regular car.
Interesting.
So therefore, it actually it was more, I guess, affordable in certain regards. But I think it was also powered by an air-cooled, like pretty much something that was the equivalent of a large lawnmower engine.
And this was in the UK.
a lawnmower
Yeah.
engine? Wait.
The equivalent of a slightly oversized lawnmower engine.
I'd be kind of scared to ride one because of how tippy.
Well, there's a fantastic episode of Top Gear where
I
Jeremy
know the one
Clarkson
you're talking about.
goes for a ride in a Reliant Robin, and I have never ever laughed as hard
Funny.
at Top
Oh
Gear
my God.
than it was that episode.
Trying not
and
to roll it. Yeah.
incredible. No, not trying not to roll it. It was right out of the gate. He goes down, he takes a corner, and the thing just goes over on its side.
Yeah,
And I just
immediately.
laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed, and it was amazing to watch that entire episode.
I asked about the UK because I gather what I've heard. I've never been there, but their road structure in a lot of areas can be quite narrow, not a lot of curves. So like it seems like also practical to get things that are smaller, and if they're
Because you
more
have to
narrow.
figure the infrastructure was built for horses, buggies, carriages, and it
Super old.
retained that style for the longest time, where we kind of gravitated towards bigger and larger and better and faster. And the UK never saw, an early 70s Lincoln Continental driving down any of their village country
Little
roads.
cobblestone streets, yeah.
There wasn't a Ford LTD or a Chevy Caprice or, any of the massive Dodge
big boats,
Monacos from once upon a time way back in the day. Our cars were gigantic because for
That's
whatever
another Top Gear
reason,
episode.
yeah, we just leaned into. We wanted bigger, we wanted larger, we wanted more bombastic and audacious.
Bigger than
More.
life.
And I think a lot of that
more.
is safety too. Like people started to think like these big vehicles made them safer too. Like in
Which it's funny about that because if you take an old Chevy Caprice, like a massive Chevy Caprice 4-door, huge land yacht, and then you take a more updated, modern, say, Chevy Malibu, identical crash tests. Individual in the Malibu look like the car is absolutely destroyed. But here's the thing. Automotive design dictates safety now. And yeah, sure, the older Caprice may not have looked like it received that much damage in a crash test. The individual inside, chances are they bounced around like a ping pong ball and they are suffering grievous bodily injury because of it. The newer cars, they are absolutely designed to protect you.
Yeah.
They are designed to crush. And yes, it's expensive to repair them when they are damaged, but the fact that they will save your life in a rollover, in a front-end collision, side impacts, there is a reason why we have all of these rules and regulations and standards and everything. They actually kind of want people to live. And you look at the advent of seatbelt. I'm not going to wear that. Why am I going to wear seatbelts? No, I'm not. Seatbelts are, they're going to do more harm than good. Belts are now an accepted thing.
Yeah, there was
Airbags,
There was an interview with a town about seatbelts that blew my mind. They're just like, I'm still not gonna wear it.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care if they pull me over.
There's
Whatever. I was
a
like,
lot of
you're gonna
people-
die. Like in my
we're
my
very
way, it's like, you're gonna
anti-authority, and so if you
Yeah.
if you make certain people do anything,
Yep.
even if it's like to help them, they're just going to be like, well, that's like communist China, like some shit. It's like I sent you a beer thing from the 80s.
Yeah. What do you mean I can't drive around my pickup truck and drink my beer?
Like,
Like,
I saw that. That's pretty funny.
you guys worked a 10, 11 hour day, on the ride home, you can maybe have 3 or 4 beers.
or road soda.
Road soda.
Yeah.
Rhoda.
Yeah, that's as I called it.
Oh my
And then this
God.
woman's like, yeah, I don't know, like they're gonna be like communist China soon. It's like got a kid like in the car at the same time, and it's like safety.
Yeah.
Your responsibility for people. I hated it, man. I was old enough to where Maine, like it wasn't a thing. New Hampshire is still not. You don't have to wear your seatbelt, right?
You don't have to.
Matt?
You don't have to wear a motorcycle helmet in New Hampshire either.
Oh wow, live free or die.
Yeah, in the most grievous of bodily injuries, yes.
But yeah,
I mean, it was their choice to do that, so
In
I
all
guess they got what they
seriousness,
wanted,
like,
right?
Yeah.
well, I mean, I remember. So I visited family here in New Hampshire like every summer, and it became this thing because I think the seatbelts came in like when I was like angsty and like my dad was always a protested to authority. And, it was like, oh, I got a made to be wear these. And we didn't have to do that for years. But now it felt like a sudden, like, Dad's telling us we got to be good. And it was upsetting for us for our own personal reasons. But we'd come into New Hampshire and we just hit it, like as soon as we crossed the border. Fuck you, seatbelt! Like, despite it. It was just great. Like, I remember those moments. So, yeah, you want to be able to make your own choices, but we found as human beings, sometimes having a little authority over that is better because some of the choices we make, especially impulsively, for our own freedom or beliefs, could get us killed.
Or worse, someone that you care about.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
like if I'm not making sure my kids are secure in my truck, if I'm in an accident, I'd rather be the one to die in the event, not my kids.
But it also comes down to money at the end of the day too. Insurance companies paying out for bodily injury. If you have rules and regulations in place that say you need to be buckled in and it prevents even worse injury, the insurance company wants that. The insurance company doesn't want to pay for your severed arm because it flew out the window and they had to go run down the highway to pick it up. But that's
Seen injuries for
It's a whole
people
new
roll
sport.
over
It is.
Catch the arm.
They've got roll bars in their off-roader, and they're holding on to the roll bar.
You don't want to hold on to a roll bar.
No, you don't.
No, you never want to hold. So
Nope.
little
There
tech
goes your
tip.
hand.
Little tech tip. If you have a 5-point harness or even a regular seatbelt, a lot of newer vehicles have what they call seatbelt pretensioners. And in an automotive crash, you want to be held as rigid as humanly possible. And the seatbelts actually have a mini airbag or a charge built into them that they cinch the seatbelt down on you when the impact happens. So in addition to the airbag going off, the seatbelt holding you in place, and the car absorbing the energy of the impact around you, this kind of goes with the roll bar aspect. You never, ever, ever want to grab onto a roll bar because the roll bar is there to prevent a crush injury, to prevent the vehicle from flattening on top of you.
Putting your hands outside of that.
So if you see all of these people who drive around in Jeep Wranglers, no comment, Jeep Wranglers have a built-in roll structure because they have a fiberglass top that is part of them.
They roll all the time.
Yeah. Well, they're far better now. They're designed far better now because they take things like that into consideration.
Yeah.
But never, ever, ever want to grab a roll bar because you feel that it's going to steady you in a rollover, because as it rolls over, you're going to just flambe your hand or
yank it
potentially
out the socket
they call it degloving.
Oh, I got you.
Yoink! All your skin goes bye-bye.
Degloving.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. You don't want to look up pictures on that. Don't look up pictures on that at all.
No.
So
I want to.
in a safety sense, your best bet: cross your arms over your chest and just ride the.
Yeah,
ride
just
the
already be dead in the coffin. I'm fucking dead.
Or that.
Accept it.
Well, it depends on how hard the rollover is. But if
Go
you're going
loose,
to,
right? Is that what you want? You want to cover yourself and just like
if you're
drunk.
I want to be
well, that's the funny thing too.
Get nice and loose.
If you're intoxicated and you're looser, you have less of a chance of actually.
You're less tense when you
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like a skateboard. You fall with it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like just don't grab anything. Brace yourself, arms across the chest, and just roll with it.
I also know that when you go down and your thumb's on the inside of the wheel, you can jank your thumbs up when you hit downwards.
So that was another interesting aspect of driving.
Is that where roll with
driver's
it?
ed.
Or is that where roll with it came from? I wonder.
It probably goes further than that, but
well, like crashes in general or falls in general.
Well, anything that would roll, it has kind of its own course.
Roll
Like
with
if you
it.
roll the barrel down a hill or something, like it's on it. It's on its thing. It's
Mario's
gonna-
in there. Donkey Kong just
let it
chucked that
go.
bad boy.
Yeah, it's
Let it
gonna
go.
hit a bump, and it might go this way, it might go that way, it might plinko out into the zero. You don't
Yep.
know, but you gotta roll with it.
I'm happy to say I'm part of the generation that rolled down hills and barrels.
I did that once.
Truck tires.
It was fun. Oh yeah, I did
Big truck
truck
tires.
tires. Yep.
Yeah.
Because my uncle owns Ingersoll Station here in town, and he had like just hundreds of tires just sitting there, and me and my brother would just be like, "We're just gonna go roll this over here," and my uncle would be like, "Oh my god!"
Shout out Ingvar Sentinel Repair. What was it called?
Ingersoll Transportation, but that's the thing.
Same thing.
CP jumped over a hill there. The name Ingerson is actually my family's maiden name. It actually used to be son of Inger. Before that, it was son of Ingvar. And then that clan, the Ingvar clan, there's reports that they may have sailed with Ericsson.
Oh, Leif Erikson?
Yeah, Leif Erikson.
Eef.
But that's like, again,
Vinland.
they didn't write enough
Vinland.
down. They didn't write enough stuff down. So we don't really have like a direct, like, we sailed with Vikings.
They
But I
didn't
like
blog
to,
that shit.
I like to think about
shit,
that stuff.
I'm fucking here in the ship, man.
So that's why CP was just saying Ingvar, like, because with that, it's the
I
family.
was actually making an assumption, and then there we go.
Nice.
You wanted to carry us into
deduction,
something
my
else.
Yes.
friend.
So I wanna bring us back to our breaking ground subject. Let's just go around and start with CP. What was your first car?
It was an 87 Subaru GL hatchback, 2-door, had the beige. I crashed it a lot, did a lot of Bondo work, beat the shit out of it. It's the young day. I think it was like 18 when I had it. A Jim Morrison little trippy sticker in the side. That thing. Picture that, but yeah, it was. I don't even remember. Wheel drive. Probably know about those 87.
Subarus usually are all-wheel drive.
All-wheel.
Usually.
Almost
Yeah,
all
I
of them.
can't even.
Almost all of you. Because that's the whole thing that Paul Hogan, the beauty of all-wheel drive. He was the Subaru Outback pitch
Yeah.
guy for the longest time.
And all the commercials.
But it
Don't
was,
die.
It was virtually the greatest car a young. It's the greatest car a young, reckless, robust, I guess, man would be driving around in. Because I got in a few slip-ups with it, and towards the end of it, when it finally went, I may have blew a tire and needed to maybe get home and maybe drove it 15 minutes just on the rim.
Oops.
It was the time back then.
Yeah.
And
Got to do what you got to do.
it still worked for a little while, but I mean, that car, you could literally beat on the thing. And great car. I think I had it about, now this is the thing, let's say $1,200 or $800, something like, not a lot. I think it had like 40,000 miles on it. Had it probably a couple of years with zero repairs. Like deer bounced off it and shit, and it was just like fuck another dent.
Did you grow attached to it, even though it was kind of like your first car?
I didn't call it a Scooby Doo, like Subaru, like Scooby-Roo and stuff, and I grew really attached to it because
that's, I was just about to say that that's the new thing people are saying now. Sometimes with Subarus is Sub-Uwu.
Subaru.
Ew.
Painful.
It's painful.
It's painful.
Don't get
Really
me wrong.
gross. I hate that.
It's painful because it used to be you call them Scooby Doos. And
Yeah.
that was cute, but the Uwu thing is like just cringe, like so
Yeah.
cringy. I'm like, oh,
Gross.
It's a different world, brother.
It is.
Different time. That car I grew super fond of. I had that car when I lived out on my own. My first longer time, my first long relationship, like a year and a half or two. So during the car, the first time I moved out, lots of things. One of my first long full-time job. So there was just all these things that were first car. And then I was also the kid that had a car.
Oh, you were the chauffeur.
Yeah,
You were the friend group?
which gets problematic because it's like, everyone's wanting rides, but it becomes a little bit of a business after a while. Like, throw me some stuff, or
I was
whatever.
that too. Like I had the powerful Taurus four-door sedan.
I think I had a Taurus.
Yeah. So,
I had a Taurus in the Tempo.
No, Mike, what was your first vehicle?
My first vehicle was a 1971 International Harvester pickup truck.
Whoa, that's so cool.
An international.
What year was that?
I have to look that up.
1971.
I don't have
when you had it. So
When I had it,
probably 20 years old.
I was 17.
I don't have a visual of that.
Yeah.
Crap, I
It's a
can look it up.
1971 International Harvester pickup truck,
What color
model 1110. So 1110. It was originally painted alpine white with a red interior. It was an automatic. It had a 304 cubic inch V8 with a 3-speed automatic transmission.
So cool.
The rear end had been replaced with a Ford 9-inch rear end. I had it, but previous to me buying it.
They're gorgeous.
That's a short
Whoever-
truck body, only 9 inches.
Whoever
That's so damn
hits the
cool.
rear axle,
That's such a
so the
Mike-
rear end.
I was just
Yeah.
wondering like,
So,
what that measurement
That's an
is.
older one right
That's
there.
older
So
than yours?
the 9-inch rear end, it's the size of the ring
What
gear.
year
in the
was
rear
yours again?
differential. 1971.
Okay.
So
Older
With
than your
that-
boy CP over here.
someone had painted it yellow, and then had stripped the nose, and it was all in primer gray.
Oh, dude,
And
too.
it still had the original fender decal of where it was sold. It came from someplace in
So cool. I love the 70s vehicles anyways.
International Harvester, is that the
they made the Scout, the International Scout that we
Oh.
drive in SnowRunner.
that explains the grill? I was just about to
Yeah,
ask the
it's
grill.
a
on it.
very similar grill. Yep.
Yeah.
So I had that truck for a number of years, and I had put a CB into it. I had the 2 big CB antennas that were attached to the mirrors, and I actually put little American flags on the CB antennas. So as I'm driving around, these 2 little, antenna flags are just kind of whipping in the wind.
That's fun.
Back when that was a cute notion of a little,
That was-
little subtle thing, and now it's like dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
Look at
So,
me.
Every car looks like a shoe now.
when I had this truck,
I use the term electric razor.
Yeah.
I had actually painted the entire thing black. I went to Kmart. I bought a case of Krylon black spray paint, and I
Sick.
painted the whole thing black. So I changed the color of it. And one day when I had this truck, I had a notion that I wanted to paint a giant flag on the hood of this truck.
Oh, no, he's,
That's
he's,
cool.
he's
So I went-
starting to get carried away now.
And totally. But you know what? Oddly
Kinda
enough,
cool,
it
though.
was
I
kind of
love
one
it.
of those things where it was just like, no, this is just normal. This is regular. It was just small town stuff. Do what you do.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that
Go okay?
that one has the different. That one right there has the different. That was the grill that my 1972 International Harvester had. That grill right there, and International made some really great trucks. They were awesome looking trucks. They were great looking
It
vehicles.
just looks cool. But like I said, I love
I
the
love-
70s style.
I love seeing those like 70s and 80s pickup trucks. Like at this point, I
70s,
grew
early 70s were still a little bit more of a round kind of shape to them.
Mhm.
Late 60s had like it was still it was the evolution of the shape of the truck, and it was still all the aerodynamics of a brick. But like there's a particular reason why mid 80s Chevy trucks are called square bodies, because they legitimately have the most squared off features of any vehicle that's
Yeah.
out there.
My first vehicle I rode in, my dad had a 76 Dodge something. And it just had the bench seat in the front,
Yeah.
and it had the what was that upholstery? It was like the crazy pattern and upholstery on the bench seat.
You've either got vinyl or you've got like a velour or
It was-
cloth.
It was like a cloth
Yeah.
bench seat, and I was like 1 year old, just bouncing around between my mom and dad in the front of that thing. Because I grew up where when I was a little kid, we didn't have running water or anything like that, so like potty trained in an outhouse, like that, all of that stuff. So I specifically remember going to a natural spring for water, drinking water, and bouncing around in the front of that 70s pickup to go up these S turns in the middle of winter. I'm 1 year old. We crash, I'm dead. So we just kind of, it was so
different back then.
normal.
Very much so.
Like just no one gave a fuck. Just what you did.
I see kids in these like weird like booster, like because booster things never.
Dude, they're like little thrones now. They take up my whole car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Car seats now are very involved.
They look like a race car seat.
Yep, that's exactly what they're like.
Yeah.
Because race car technology is cutting edge technology. Anytime you look at race car technology, it's always on the forefront of safety, of performance, of everything else, and everything kind of filters down from
So
that.
those companies just vibe off that design, probably. Or
like,
are they associated with
if
it?
if you look at a car seat now and you look at a 5-point harness from a race car, they're basically the similar thing.
Okay.
So you're locked in. That kid is locked into that car seat
Yeah.
with the 5 points all the way across.
Yeah, as long
And
as you
it's-
fasten those seats into the actual seat, those kids actually have a really
You
high
can't
chance
just
of
put them in
survival.
loose in the back of the pickup and be like, bumper cars, kids.
you could.
Nah, they made that illegal now. So
Darn it.
yeah,
Actually, funny enough, the flag I painted on the hood of my truck was the reason why I wound up with the flag that covered my grandfather's casket. Yep. Because I did that whole design on the hood of my truck, and I wanted to show it off to someone. So I went to my grandmother, was one town over.
Okay.
And I pulled in the driveway, and she comes out like she always does, because she would always come right out, and anytime like me and my father showed up there, or anytime I stopped by, she would just come right out the side door of her house, and I was showing it to her, and she goes, okay, hold on. So she goes back in the house, she comes back out, and she's got this clear plastic case, and there's very obviously a flag inside of it, and the clear plastic case was actually a map case with various different like writings on the exterior of it. And I'm not sure if it was my grandfather or if it belonged to somebody different, but she gave me the flag because she figured to herself that like I am now the one who should have this, because here I am, just a 17, 18-year-old kid showing up in my grandmother's house going, hey, I want to show off something cool. And then she sees this and recognizes that, and that's how she gave me the flag that
she
covered
associated Mike with American flag.
something like that. Yeah. And it was just, it was one of those things that was, it was probably one of the more heavier moments in my entire life. And it was also the first time I ever saw my grandmother cry, because she never cried. She was one of the most stoic.
Never saw any of my grandparents cry.
She was one of the toughest human beings.
They were tough people.
Yeah. She never wanted to bother anyone,
Mm-hmm.
and that was ingrained into her from many, many years ago. And it was just, I wound up with that flag, and that was the first time I had ever seen her. I had ever seen her shed a tear, and it was just, it was one of those defining moments of, me, and it just,
That's amazing.
it was wild. It was definitely wild, and
Hearing that, that's really cool.
Feels right for everybody, like those moments, especially when it comes to symbols and just timing. Beautiful. Like you have this idea, you do it, and it feels right. It feels beautiful. Things like that can come up. That's why you always got to go with your gut. Something about that did it for a reason, and it really led you to fate, destiny, God, whatever. But I do feel like energy sometimes, man, really connects.
it was always interesting too, because every time, and it happened more later in my grandmother's years. Every time I went to visit, she always sent me home with something. She was always giving me something to take home, something to, something that was around the house, whether it was just something random off the shelf or, what have you. It was, my grandmother was definitely one of those people in my life that was very important to me. And I mean, she's been gone over 10 years now, and just one of those things,
Yeah, I thankfully my mom she made it to 93, trying to beat.
She was very adamant about that.
She was racing with the queen. The queen beat her, but 93 years.
Don't beat the queen.
Yeah,
Win against the queen.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Semantics, right?
Yeah, no.
But
the queen
she didn't beat the queen. But wonderful woman, and similar to that situation, I was just thinking about it. She got really sick towards the end, and she went into different hospice care, and usually that. And my mother was home health for a lot of her life. and she worked with her other sister, and they just took care of her, and she got to be at home. It was beautiful because we got to have these moments like you've never seen your grandmother cry. I told my grandmother like, "Oh, I love you." She's like, "Oh, I love you." The morphine probably helped, but we never really said that to each other, and we knew the moments were coming, but it extended for quite some time. The neighborhood got to come in. It was such a beautiful way to say your goodbyes. Nothing was sudden, and there were things that she would, yeah, you'd go over there and she'd give you things. It felt really great when like she could see you and she would ask about it and like wonder like where is this object going and why do you love it? Say those things. So great. And benefit to her, she died right before the pandemic. Very worried about her and it was very hard. She died that September before all started up. She didn't have to see that reality. And yeah, grandmothers are great, and it's great that you got to have those some of those good moments with mine. Shout out grandmas.
Yeah, I saved every card that she ever gave me.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
saved every single card. There was one point in time I got a brand new Monte Carlo. It was an '06 Monte Carlo SS.
Damn.
And no, this was the '07. I got the
Sure, this
07.
wasn't the birthday card. It was on the front of it. He got the actual card. Wow, actual card, man.
So
Card or car? I'm getting confused.
the first place that I went.
It's Mike, dude. It could be anything.
Yeah,
I know.
the first place that I went when I got this Monte Carlo was to her house to show it off because I was excited. And she, I took her for a little ride around the block and everything. And she actually wrote me a card and mailed me a card thanking me for taking her for a ride.
That's cool.
in the car. And I still have that too.
That's cool.
This is the exact kind of thing that I was thinking of, is like how we get attached and how it's like they're intertwined in our lives and how they become family members. Cars themselves also become family.
I could see why he really loves cars because, like, I can associate certain objects that aren't cars with my grandmother in different ways. Things that are handmade, maybe video games, things that are more my sensibility, and then they just stack, and I become
It's
appreciative of that.
typewriters.
Yeah, and like different. Yeah, we all have as a writer that makes a lot of sense. I like have a fondness for typewriters. I'm old. That was the only thing we. Yeah, I see that. That was the only thing we had. Like I typed out a letter to my cousin once, and it was so fun.
My grandmother showed me how to write on a typewriter. My dad
It's always about the
actively
grandma,
hated
huh?
teaching writing, and he would resort to, well, my teachers treated me like I was stupid because I don't understand, and because of that, I don't know anything about reading or writing, so he had no interest in teaching me. My mother actively hates reading. So I basically taught myself how to read and write. My grandmother was like the one force that actually encouraged me to write stuff. So like she taught me cursive and how to use a typewriter. I knew more about, and it's really tricky sometimes when you have a background that is like the 70s. Like I grew up essentially in the 70s, but I was born in 90. And then you go into public school in the 90s after after
that's a whole
having
other show.
Dude, I didn't even know what a portable CD player was. I'm popping into class, I'm like, what is this shit you have?
What the
And
heck?
I'm like, what is an Xbox? And like, no, they kids in class, or like you were like a rich kid just because you owned a game system.
Yeah.
Like
You had a tarred driveway and a garage. Don't even add the swimming pool. You were the richest kid ever.
yeah, dude, yeah, seriously.
I've been
So
trying to get a tarred driveway.
anyway, so yeah, I think it breeds into what my first car was.
But no, that's amazing. Because I just wanted to, I don't want to cut you off, but just because you said you have the car thing, and I know I'm a bit Hogan.
It's hard to spend
When I talk with my hands,
mirroring you.
the
Sorry, go
French in
ahead.
me. I don't know. It's visual too.
Pretty American of us to do.
Jazz hands? Can we all do jazz hands?
Over here.
Screenshot that one, man.
So
I will.
go back to the origin.
I'm good.
Put that.
And we talk about grandma. He has a car connection.
Mm.
And then you have this writing connection. Well, Dreamers Arcade, the slogan, dream, play, create. play is a very big emphasis of life, being childish, playing games, things like that, extending yourself in these other and play. Grandmother always played cards up until the day she died. She'd play cards with my mom, old school games, maybe a little cribbage or whatever. And my grandfather, he did have like a Pong console and a little portable game. He was on the edge of a video game, you know, but it's this stuff, and he was fascinated by the ones that I'd bring around. But think about it, the affinity and the love for games in a family that I connected with formed this gamer arcade person, typewriter, writer, automotive. Like it's really interesting. A lot of these, and Matt probably has
You
these
start
too.
getting a gauge for the scope of things.
Yeah,
in
you
people's
become
lives.
part of the co-culture, and there's this predominant thing that click to and gathers you guys together.
Yeah, it's actually one of the
builds who
reasons
you are.
why I got one of my daughters in.
For me.
I got her a typewriter because I wanted her to have that special moment with me, and she showed a vague interest in writing. And I'm like, you want to know what got me excited about writing? Like, what made writing fun? I went out and I bought her a 1956
Nice.
mechanical typewriter. The brand is escaping me now, but it's called like a Corona something. And I got that for her, and it's like her favorite object. She like almost cried when I got it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And
now you're paying
now
it
I'm-
forward.
So this year, for National Novel Writing Month, in my office, I'm actually sitting at my desk, working on my project. And normally, sound can annoy me quite a bit when I'm trying to work. But when I hear like it, as annoying as the sound of a mechanical typewriter can be to some people, it just feels like home to me. When I hear her she's so proud to be doing stuff with her dad that she's just punching away on that mechanical typewriter, and it goes ding, and she fixes it, and
Oh yeah.
new page in it, cranking it in there, lining it up, tap, 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 and it just goes on for like an hour or two. And that's
Yeah.
like, a lot of people try to recapture their childhood, and
Of course.
I understand that. Like you don't have kids, you said, right? So
No.
the best way, I can't just like act like a child when I have kids that are depending on me to be an adult for them and help them, you know.
Mm.
So the way I can relive my childhood is by introducing my kids to these things that got me excited as a
Yeah.
kid.
That's your
And
form of
I
play.
am reliving that, but
yeah.
through my kids, and I'm hoping that I can influence them in a positive way by doing that. So yeah, the whole typewriter thing is like just special to me specifically. My whole family, they just don't like word writing, books, stuff like that.
Hey, you know,
You
it's like
wanted to
there wasn't like there was a lot of hunting and carpentry in my family. I do
Yeah.
some of the carpentry stuff still now, but it's like art, man. It took me all the way up until now. My dad's finally starting to like grasp this, all this stuff I'm
Your
doing.
work is literally painted on buildings around town.
well, and I put their paintings of him like at the university.
Oh, sick.
Like they're these kind of ghostly images of him in these job sites. But he's like becoming Oliver Gustin. I was like, how do I get my dad into this? Make it about him and like what we do. And it's like sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
and then these are all connected moments that we connected. Matt, you were about to say something with your grandmother before you finished this.
Oh no, I wanted Joe to have the floor a little bit because he wanted to talk about his first car because we got to wrap up the round segment.
But did you have anything to say about your family? Okay.
No, nothing.
He's fucking over it.
Nothing to add with the grandmother thing. No offense to it.
No offense to my grandmother.
My like that could fill up a huge section of time because the farm is now a depot for the transportation
Okay.
business. So vehicles and cars and trucks have been huge in my family for so long. That'd be a whole nother thing. I want to let Joe talk about his first car
Sure.
because we only talked about it for a short while.
Well, I had a 97 forest green Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Ooh,
And
is it the square body ones too?
Cherokee would have been
it's
that would have been slightly angled.
Yeah.
That would have had the 4-liter inline six.
Sorry, I was just trying to
Yes.
visualize it.
The first thing I usually say after I say, you know, what my first car was is if I had removed the engine from that vehicle and sold that on its own, I would have made more money than just selling the whole Jeep.
Yeah. Yep.
that I called it Ghost Jeep for a long time because I'd be cruising down the road and the electronics, I don't know what, maybe Mike can tell me what happened, but I mean, I would be going down the road and it was like this phantom electric storm would happen in that thing. The dome light, the dome lights would be flickering, going down middle of the night, going through these old dark main curvy roads, and you have a dome light just doing flick, flick, flick,
I'm
flick,
gonna
flick,
say
flick,
bad
flick,
motor
flick.
mount pulling the wires
And
because I had a car that
the
literally
windows
burned
would
up
roll,
because of that.
the
That's
windows
funny,
would
bro.
roll up and down on their own, and like the dash lights would just flicker too, and like not like just it was
It was haunted.
fucking scary. And I remember
I'm sure that's
eventually
what Mike's gonna diagnose it as.
I'm just waiting. I know I see the wheels turning. So
a lot of times, a lot of that stuff leads back to bad. Like,
yeah,
and we see it a lot in New England because of the fact that we
Mice.
have. Well,
Squirrels.
there's if you're abutting to the woods, you're always going to have animals in there.
Yeah.
But because we put stuff on the roads to treat the roads in the wintertime, that basically acts as acid to vehicles. That has a lot to do with corrosion, and if you have bad ground strap from the engine to the body, ground strap from the engine to the frame, that alone can lead to all kinds of weird electrical problems because electricity is trying to find a pathway through regardless of where it goes through.
right.
So if it's going through some place that it's not supposed to go through just because it can, that can lead to some really weird electrical issues.
Yeah. So even if I turned off the engine for even a split second, if I didn't have jumper cables with me, I wasn't getting anywhere after that. So I remember lots of grocery trips where I would just whip the jumper cables out. I'm like, hey, you want to give me a jump? And just pretend it's like a freak thing. I'm like,
you got used to it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I got used to just approaching people and ask them to help me with a jump. And eventually this one guy, I don't know what his deal was, but he's like, oh, I'll show you how to jump these fucking wires. He cooked the rubber off the jumper cables. He just
Well, he showed you.
fried that shit. And I'm like, okay.
We're gonna do it
Yeah,
up
that doesn't
big,
help
buddy.
things.
Let's melt shit.
Wow.
There's literally like melted rubber along the top of the like in front of the grill and shit.
I said the bad motor mount. I did have a car. I just said it real quick, but I did have a Ford for a very short time.
Mhm.
It had a bad motor mount, and I was a teen. Cars, and all of a sudden we had a car full, 5 people. And then this dude around the corner, he knew stuff about cars. Like, dude, sparks! This car's sparking. And I was like, he's like, pull over. And I was like, all right. And then all of a sudden you could just see like fire and stuff underneath. He's like, get away from it. And we backed up, and then the thing just.
Yeah.
And I had to just sit there and laugh, you know. 'cause
Like,
it's
what can you do?
It's like, what can you do? But
Yep.
and I had just rolled
God.
one on its roof, another Ford, hit a stone wall. The cops like, if you'd been a foot ahead, you'd be dead. And they try to scare you, but
so
like
the
reckless.
engine in that thing could just keep on going and going. And dude, you could have hit that with a
4 liter,
sledgehammer and it would have just kept on living.
They were notorious
Oh my
for
God.
going through crank sensors, but that particular 4-liter engine was damn near bulletproof.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved that part of it, and that's why I say, if I just had like ripped that out of there, I would have made twice as much because the rest of the Jeep was garbage. Oh God.
Did you grow attached to it though, even though
I mean, it was my first car. Like, how do you not get attached to it?
there's something about it?
Yeah, I had like, I remember like having stickers that I wanted to save for my first car, and I like put a bunch of stickers on the back, and I used to give all my friends rides in the thing, and we'd all just kind of, I had a lot of just like personal mental mementos of like, moments that I had in that thing, conversations I had with, guys, we're all just teenagers, and we're just talking about, teenage life in that truck, in that car, driving from Jay to Lewiston on that street that goes from Jay to Lewiston, hitting maybe almost 100 miles an hour in that fucking Jeep, and the whole thing's just rattling like a bitch. And I remember just having the best time. We would just go all
Rattling like a bitch.
yeah, going all the way to.
Sorry, ladies, but
We would be going all the way there, and we'd be driving for an hour just to go to Denny's or something stupid like that, and then there was just a bunch of teenagers. Like,
Dude, Denny's.
so it was just
back in
man.
those days. It was always because it was 24 hours in Augusta.
Yeah.
So it was just Denny's. Like, how many times did I show up to Denny's at like 2 in the morning?
Right.
You'd
So,
run into people.
I want
like-
a pancake.
Yeah. I just remember the initial reason why I bought that Jeep was because it was in my price range, and it because it didn't have a sticker. And yeah, that was its own
I don't
other
think
animal.
My car's brand new.
But-
I don't have a sticker on it.
But it in the town I grew up in, unless you have a vehicle that can just plow through the snow on its own, you're not getting out of town. You're stranded there. Like if you have any of the vehicles that like you see running around the city, you're like, dude, that car would not survive. So it was required that you had some 4-wheel or all-wheel drive vehicle to get out. And yeah.
I've had a lot of 4x4s.
Mm-hmm.
If I actually listed off the vehicles that I've owned, you would all probably get tired before I finished.
Okay.
I believe you.
Well, we're gonna go into the deep dive, so
I'm not gonna let Storm flex.
Let us go
flex.
into the
I know you can flex. That's why I don't want him to.
you can do a flexi,
I think I've owned
flex frame.
8 cars, and half of those are with collaboratively
Yeah.
with misses. So yeah, probably had a lot of.
I've had a lot of vehicles. I've had a lot.
Well,
a lot
like
of
you're
vehicles.
into it, like.
But yeah, that's the thing. I've also had a car that had a bad motor
Mhm.
mount. Which funny story about that. I had a friend who I needed to get something for the winter
No
time.
respect.
Sorry.
I'm
Matt.
joking. I'm joking.
I just saw the dead
Pull over.
flames go over his face. Like,
Hey man, I was about to ask, like, so we had all the stickers on our cars when we were young. When did you guys finally grow up and stop putting stickers on your car?
I have
My
a
car is
sticker on
covered
my.
with
I know.
stickers.
I have a
saved
sticker on
it.
my
I
truck.
didn't want to roast
No,
you up.
I
Yeah.
don't-
Now I just
I
did because I don't know what he's doing.
I want to give Storm time to tell a story because that seemed like it would be really interesting. The glaze was because I was trying to think of how to do the deep dive at the same time as giving him the story.
You just
Like,
go,
how do I?
Deep dive. Here we fucking go.
Mhm.
Waka waka waka
Bow, bow, bow,
waka.
bow.
So the deep dive segment is really about getting down into like the really the nuts and bolts of it. Of like
Well,
like how
Getting down to the nuts.
how exactly
Mike's
is the
like,
car
I know
built?
nuts and bolts.
And like what amount of like energy and time and effort does it really take to create a car? Like if we were to build one from the ground up,
Oh
what
boy.
would we actually have to do?
What are you building?
couldn't. You-
We couldn't.
depending on what you wanted to do and what you need to have a viable end goal. These guys who build specialty automotive cars, but they restore cars or they build stuff in their garage.
Yep.
That's not their primary mode of transportation.
Mhm.
That's probably the 10th car that they have. They've got complete sets of tools. They're able to fabricate. They're able to cut, weld, modify, all of this stuff. It is insane the amount of specialized tools that you realistically need to put something like that together.
Oh,
And beyond that, how deep are you going? Are you painting every body panel? Are you doing all your body work? Are you starting with fresh materials like a fresh frame? Or are you pulling something out of a junkyard that you have to strip down and then sandblast and then repaint?
This is why I play Car Mechanics Simulator.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know one.
That's a weird anomaly in video gaming and stuff like that. But like,
I was just about to say too with video games, I've constructed vehicles in like a game like Space Engineers.
Yeah.
And the physics in Space Engineers is so robust that if you have a wheel that is too close to a part of the body or the frame,
Yep.
and you try to turn, the whole thing will just like start flipping and you'll crash. And it's like, what did I do wrong? Like, what is wrong with
everything.
this?
You did everything wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, simulation stuff I find really interesting because you can learn whether you're doing a combat, you learn about weaponry, whether you learn about history, if it's at all accurate. But yeah, you were doing the space stuff and you're showing me because I was like, I want to design some spaceships for the Dreamers Arcade,
Mhm.
but like, what's the main components? And he's like, taking it apart and breaking it down, and for a visual person, it's very useful.
Yeah.
And then I think about, like, I had a conversation with somebody the other day. This tech and these racing wheels and all this stuff we have, we're gonna be able to easily get like 12-year-olds like on this tech. So by the time they get their licenses, they're either
Oh, yeah.
gonna get it early or they're gonna be doing wild shit. The only drawback is that they might be like pro drifters at that
Well,
point, and
so-
it gets even crazier.
I believe you got, and you can disagree with me on this because I am interested to hear the opposite point to this. I believe that with the introduction of so many self-driving vehicles and all those
Well,
AI
that
vehicles,
too.
I think maybe not necessarily Gen Alpha, which is my kid's age, but below them, we're going to have a
Alpha,
surge
get the
of
fuck
really
outta here.
bad drivers. People who are not aware of like how to actually drive a vehicle
Like
safely.
lane assist and stuff.
Because they've had not
I was
necessarily
going to
lanes,
touch upon that
but,
too. Yeah.
but just
So-
people who have the computer drive the car for them. We're gonna be the boomers, being like, well, that's a good drive standard,
So-
and you know,
Well,
like
sorry,
yeah.
before we get into that, I do want to touch on like how that's going to change with driving cars, but I wanted to finish up with the construction part. The reason I wanted to ask you about this is I heard about these kits. You can basically buy every part for a car,
Oh yeah.
and supposedly it's a little cheaper than just buying a car outright, but you have to do all the work yourself.
I think it depends on how much power you want it to have.
Well, there's also a large aspect of if you put the car together yourself, if you assemble a kit car, and a lot of times it's not just the whole thing that they give you. You have to find a donor engine. You have to use a donor drivetrain. You have to use parts and pieces from
Oh.
other
How
components.
are they going to ship you a
Not
full
just
engine,
classic
so-
cars. I'm also talking about apparently you can buy just all the parts from like a modern car even and just put it together yourself.
That
There-
leads to some very interesting
Yeah.
situations. You can kind of do that if you walked into a parts counter at a Chevy dealership and said, "I want every single piece to put this car together." Chances are it may actually end up being more expensive than if you.
We talked about this
That's
before.
what I was curious
Manufacturing
about,
really
yeah.
cuts costs down
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
when you buy a new part, it seems like, oh, I really got taken. It's like, then you're like, oh, and the scope of the whole car and the fact that we have to now pull the old out and not efficient. We had that conversation just the other day.
This does kind of go into like just constructing a car is incredibly
The advent of hot rodding, of automotive customization, and just even auto racing and NASCAR. The
Oh man, that's evolved so
bootlegging.
much.
the bootlegging history and roots of NASCAR and what that evolved into, and then the entire
Rally.
race on Sunday, buy on Monday, everything, and just surrounding NASCAR. But like rally started a little bit differently, and we had weird automotive stuff. We were about big motors, huge horsepower numbers, drag racing. You're not going to find drag racing in a lot of other parts of the world.
I used to watch it when I was a kid, like drag racing, popular in the 90s.
Monster trucks, monster truck
Yeah,
car
that's
crushing.
still popular.
That was
here in
it's
Bangor.
very popular, and that's a
We're in
very
Bangor. We're in New Hampshire.
very American
I wasn't
thing.
gonna correct you. I knew you'd figure it out.
Thanks.
I got you.
the sort of feeling of how complicated all that is and like really passionate about it. You will learn how to construct a vehicle, but sort of lead into the like people are becoming worse drivers thing.
Oh yeah,
It's
very
'cause
much
people
so.
don't know the machine that they're operating.
Not
They
at
don't
all.
When
even
you have
know,
a
like,
computer in your lap too,
Yeah.
like a lot of people they have to disconnect. Like I don't know how many people have gotten into accidents that I know, and it is because of the phone. I think as wild as I say the stuff was back in the day, I think there were less accidents with people maybe being robust behind the wheel as opposed to like texting. Because I know people who just passed like
Today's word of the day is robust.
I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They I know people who have passed
I
because of
insulted you
that. And it's
several
like,
times.
I met this friend of a friend, and and we're dating, and then I find out he was a great guy I had dinner with, and then all of a sudden, gone. Like he got into an accident with texting, and I'm like, what? Like it's such a surprise and a shock.
There's no resistance to it. At least a drunk has some kind of reaction.
And I even got like someone recently to kind of, well, I didn't even get them to admit it. They just said it. They're like, look down at my phone for 1 second. It's like,
That's all it takes.
but dude, like you can't like feel like a victim because of that. Like that's what it is.
And the interesting thing about that though is with these new cars, we are going away from a tactile sensation when it comes to radio buttons, air conditioning
God, yeah.
controls, everything like that. So you can't just simply drive and then by feel know that you're turning the radio up or know that you're using the knob to turn up the heat because everything's a touch screen.
CPU
now.
watched me adjust the radio, and because I don't have Bluetooth CD player. I can't play a tape in my truck. There's no it's just
I hope
FM
you don't
radio.
have a tape player. As much as that, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, but I don't have any of that stuff. I have to use a cigarette lighter attachment for the Bluetooth, and I was adjusting the heat and the cold because all the way here, like the heat was fluctuating in my truck so much. I was just I'm going up those turns up through those what mountains did we pass through going into Lincoln? Those trails up and down out of through Lincoln,
the whippy ones,
and I'm trying to pay attention to this road. This road's a little narrow. It whips around and just 1,000-foot drop, and I just look over. I don't even look. I'm just like adjust, and I'm like not even thinking about
the volumes on the steering wheel and stuff.
That is actually a really great thing, is having all of those controls. You've got your cruise control, you've got your radio, you've got your you can answer a phone call with a tap of a button, something like that. But look at a car that's very, very forward-thinking. A Tesla. There is no physical buttons in a Tesla.
It's just a glass screen.
It's a giant, and that's your instrument cluster. It's basically the whole dash. Oh yeah, it's crazy. Basically, you're looking at a panoramic screen that's your dashboard that has all of your stuff that's in there. Yes, it's very forward-thinking, but in the same aspect of it, you have to take your attention and look at the thing right there. But the Tesla's supposed to have the their version of the automatic driving. But exactly what you were saying, backup cameras, lane assist, lane departure.
I love those cameras, man.
Backup cameras, it's interesting because they mandated backup cameras in a certain year forward, and they are so incredibly useful. Like my Camaro has backup sensors, and that's it.
Yeah.
I can't see a damn thing behind me, but I can listen to a beep go beep, 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 and then I know on it that's good enough. We got to stop. But you can't see anything behind you.
Yeah.
There is you've got side view mirrors that you can kind of see stuff that's sort of
you
around
told
you.
me once that the blind spots in your car is just all there is.
You look forward, and that's it. Your world is ahead of you. There is nothing behind you.
I like to think of this in terms of herbivore versus predator. Like an SUV is sort of an omnivore.
Yeah. But
a Camaro would be a predator, and then you have your utility trucks are full-on herbivores. You can see everywhere if you need to. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I like the Jeep because it's got visibility. I can see everything, and I don't have lane departure. I don't have backup sensors. I don't have a backup camera, but I can see everything around me because I'm in kind of a glass fishbowl. The Camaro is the absolute antithesis of that because you're in the Jeep. You're sitting up in an upright position. In the Camaro, you're basically almost
down in the seat.
recline.
Oh yeah.
And you're the windows in the Camaro are probably only this tall compared to a truck, which is a window, a legitimate window that you can actually hang out of and drive along in. But
one thing I learned owning a Hummer is you really get tucked into that thing. You can't see anything in that Hummer. The blind spots are here. It starts here and right here, and everything past that, you're
yep.
Good luck, everybody else.
Exactly. Yep.
I got a two-bird with one stone situation. You were talking about the ice, the snow, the salt that goes on the road.
Yep.
So my father and I both about the same time got Chevys. I have the mini SUV, and then he has the actual truck. But he boomer, so he doesn't want all the extra features. He gets crank windows. He gets his stuff scaled down a lot.
A lot of times you can't even find that anymore.
Yeah, and he has the backup camera because they're supposed to be, but he doesn't have those little side mirror. I don't know if you've seen those. Mine will light up when someone's in your lane.
The blind spot detectors.
I got very used to that. Now my father is freaking out because we're driving into town and it was slushy and snowy. And we're following that salt truck, and he's got a new truck. He's like, "This is gonna fuck up it's gonna eat away," and he's getting hot. He's getting kind of wound up, and he wants to get around it. The lane's split into two. He's like, get around it. But he doesn't have that little backup thing that I'm used to. I didn't see it, and I look up, and then all of a sudden this giant tractor trailer body, and we almost merged. I go, nope, stop. And you see these features, and you're like, man, they are really helpful. And
they're helpful. They're driver assists. They're not
like
meant to take over.
I feel like they can also handicap your ability to drive.
Very much
too.
so.
Yeah.
if you get line, what if it doesn't work?
So I have my blue cord hanging up over my. I don't know if you noticed in the truck on the way in, but my blue cord, it's something only infantrymen can have. So I have it with pride. So I hang that from my mirror, and it goes. My rear view, my backup camera is like this big, and it just hangs out right in the middle of it. And it's been there. I'm so used to just backing up without the rear view camera that I feel a little more confident about backing my truck up without the camera. And I was talking to Mike before the show that I had a 2011 Silverado, and that was one of my favorite cars of all time. And one of the reasons why is because I enjoyed that it didn't have all the bells and whistles. It was very straightforward. If you want to listen to music, it had a CD player, and that's the most advanced thing it had. It didn't have a backup camera. It didn't have any special doodads. It's one of the reasons why I kind of want to get my own square body pickup, because it's just
simple,
good meat and potatoes kind of style.
Yeah, I like to cut it back to that.
That even leans harder into no nanny controls, because if you get a square body, chances are it's carbureted. It's got a V8, it's carbureted. You start it up, it runs. It's got no ABS. It's got no traction assist. It's got nothing. The most intelligent
Everything is
thing
on you when you drive.
Exactly. So it's a very unique and interesting situation when you take someone who's so used to driving a new car that has lane departure, that has ABS brakes, that has traction assist and all of that stuff.
I'll put them into an older vehicle.
I didn't even realize that stuff
exists.
So when I went to
until one day I was like, oh, it breaks a bit.
Well, when I went to the Bangor Comic-Con, my car was going through some shit, and I didn't trust it to make that 4-hour trip without problems. So I took my mother's car, and she's got a 2019, I think it is, Jeep Cherokee.
Nice. Okay.
And
that's got everything.
It's big, and it has backup camera, it has the lane assist. It even has something where you can match speed with the car in front of you.
Yep, adaptive cruise control.
Thank you.
Yep.
What?
And I tried that.
I didn't know that existed.
I tried all these things on this trip.
It's awesome.
It actually is very nice if you're just trying to relax and just have a nice drive. And there's a good stretch of highway that was almost an hour of the trip. And I'm like, I'm just gonna try these things and see how it feels.
Yeah.
And there was a sense of awe. There was like, oh, this is really cool that this even works. There's like the technology thing of like, oh, we're in the future. But then there's also this feeling of, this feels too nice. I want to feel the car beneath me. I want to feel how the wheels are doing.
Did you feel a little out of control when that happened?
I just not necessarily out of control as much as maybe out of control is a great way to put it.
You're not really
I didn't feel like I was
you don't choose the destiny of where the car is going kind of thing.
And it also had this feeling of it was just too soft.
My theory is
too nice.
My theory is a couple generations below us will look at videos like this, and we're talking about how we think that kids these days are going to be just the worst drivers. And they're going to look at us like
I didn't say this shit. These old.
They're going to look at us like we're like a couple of dumb old hicks who are like, yeah, well, I like things harder because I have more control when it's hard. It's like back to the seatbelt thing. Yeah. They're like, well, I'm in control of my own destination.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
So I understand the argument from both sides. Like, arguably, vehicles will keep our kids safer.
Yeah.
But on the other hand of that, like, if you put that kid into a vehicle older than a Tesla, are they going to be able to drive that? Should they have a license?
Well,
let's drive it. So
let's put it in terms of movies.
Yeah.
Look at movies where characters are fish out of water. Look at Will Smith in iRobot. Look at Sylvester Stallone in Demolition Man.
Yeah, totally.
We're not supposed to, right? We're not supposed to. They make the comment that we're not supposed to disengage the auto drive. Like the idea behind it. When Will Smith goes to drive on the highway, he almost kills himself.
Yeah.
Because everything is automated. So.
And then I always think of
was it Angels and Demons in the
or is it
the judge.
In
Demolition Man, the big
You're
red
fired. You're fired from your own podcast. Get out of here.
Bye. The red muscle car that Dennis Leary has.
Dennis Leary, I think that was a convertible. I think it was a GTO. I would have to double check. I haven't seen that movie.
I just remember
the one that he.
I just remember
Sandra
Huxley
Bullock
saying, "With bucket seats."
Sandra Bullock says what it is. Like you're gonna remember.
Oh, that's right. I haven't seen all. Yeah, I gotta watch that movie again.
That's what you remember her.
And then he destroys it in the following scene.
Bucket seats.
Yeah, because bucket seats used to be a selling feature. It used to be an option and a thing that you could get because you wanted the bucket seats and you wanted the big center console. And it either had the Hearst shifter or the Chevelle had the hoop style shifter.
Are we all just John Spartan?
Yeah, so
when these kids,
why don't you just shove a leash on my ass?
When my kids are in their 20s, are we gonna be the John Spartans of the world where they're like, you know, that movie actually predicted a lot of stuff. We've got cameras on us at all times.
Hey man, Taco Bell survived the.
People are way more scared. People are way more scared now than they were back younger, older days. Like people are way more scared nowadays.
Who wants Taco Bell?
I have an idea of
because they survived the best food wars.
There was a movie where
Taco Bell.
Tom Hanks. I think it was Angels and Demons. They're running away from the. I can't remember what the police are called in Italy.
Policia?
Not the police. Yeah, no, it's
the Vatican.
Oh, the Vatican police.
Yeah, what are they called?
Yeah, those guys are hard. Those guys are like.
I can't remember what they're called, but they're running away from them.
Oh, what the fuck are they called?
He gets into a UPS truck to get away from them. It's the only car that they could get into because the rest were locked.
Yeah,
and it was standard. And he's like, oh shit, I don't know how to drive standard.
Exactly.
And the woman he's running away with is like, get out! I can do this. She goes in, she drives standard. And I was like, so great. Like, this is why I'm glad that I know how to drive standard.
The running joke now is that it's an anti-theft device.
Oh yeah. Which it's just you know, but then that leads back into the idea of like the boomers saying certain things to.
That's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to have that much of a disconnect with the
Swiss guards, bro.
Oh, the Swiss guard, yes.
And
they have the pantaloons and everything with the feathers.
Because I
see
a
bunch of roosters jumping around.
Yes.
Sorry guys, you wear fucking crazy shit, man.
Every generation has this very intense divide. There was a point in time where the generation hated you because you read. Why would you be reading when you should be out there working in the yard? Yeah. Well, and then the generation below that, they're like, oh, you're reading fiction? You're not even learning anything while you're sitting there? Why don't you go read a fictional book? And like after that, they're like, oh, well, they first introduced cell phones. Like, oh man, these kids, they can't be near cell phones. Like, because that's, you know, what I'm doing is like, I'm using this as like a regular like cell phone consumption kind of thing.
That's why I'm not.
But that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do with vehicles. I think there's a whole generation of people who said, oh, you don't even know how to saddle up a horse for a carriage? Like, what kind of man are you? You don't know how to push a carriage down the road? It's like that kind of stuff. And now we're going to do that to the Tesla kids.
Do that. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, and that's what the kids are going to be like with us when we're talking about Teslas versus what we're driving.
This woman I work for who's now in her 80s, she moved from like Idaho or Nebraska where it's like flat farmland and stuff. And so she bought all this acreage. They bought this historic house, it's the second oldest house in my town. Beautiful house for like nothing, like $1,000, $2,000. Insane. And all 40 acres of land. Imagine. And then they bought all the land around it. And then like I think she bought like 80 acres for like $6,000. And then her parents go, why would you buy that useless land for $6,000? Can't even farm on it. And you could see like the values and the difference of these generations. She sold that stuff into a housing development, had everybody so they're not like clustering up. Their bank account can't be touched. They were just school teachers, but like they had endless money because it was like real estate. But even back then, there's always like, I think your parents can only take you to a certain point because they can only teach you the world that they really know. Yeah. And then they start now, and then you start teaching them the world they don't know.
The most you can do is just try to keep that tie so that I feel like that you can find a compromise with the generation below you without being like, you know, elitist about, you know, what's specific things.
To a degree, because a lot of times find people who refuse to change, who look down on others and, oh, your life's easier, well, poo on you, and it's like, but we're
just using what we have.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry that you had to walk uphill backwards with no shoes. Sorry, we've got this thing now called school buses. My bad. It's paid for by the damn town that's going around and picking you up.
And the technology that your generation invented made it so everyone has shoes now.
Yeah.
And nostalgia is so dangerous too.
Yeah.
The value system doesn't exist anymore. You know, not to pick on anybody in particular, but when you try to make something great again, it's like, well, what does that mean? What does that actually mean? What was the great thing that you want to achieve clearly? It's too loose, and it appeals to sensibilities of people that have radically seen their world change, and you want to appeal to those sensibilities. But does that exist?
Interesting thing with automobile nostalgia.
Right. Well, yeah. Let's bring it back.
You've got a cluster of people in particular age brackets. Muscle cars, best cars on the road, fastest things ever. I could beat anything on the road. And then you look at it, and you're looking at, if you look at quarter mile times for various different muscle cars, and then you take a Toyota Corolla with a 4-cylinder and do the same damn thing. It's faster.
Yeah.
It's faster. And it's like, yes, I realize that for the day and the technology that you had, your car was fast. But we have technology, we have fuel injection, we have different tire and rubber compounds, we have traction control, we have transmissions, we have automatic transmissions that shift better and faster than, you know, what you had in a 1970 Chevelle with an M22 Stone Crusher.
Yeah.
You know, M22 Rock Crusher transmission. Like, yeah, sure, you could bang shift a gear in that thing, but that Toyota is faster than you are, and it's on numbers. There's a time slip at a drag strip that shows you went 13.2 seconds in a quarter mile, and this Toyota went 13.1 seconds, and it's faster than you are.
I thought of another aspect of that, where they would say, I can get from this place to this place this quickly, right? They'll say, like, this city to this city this quickly, but they will have to gas up 4 times. And then, the Toyota Corolla will go the entire way and not have to gas up once, and they will get there first because they didn't have to stop for gas.
The pit stops.
Yeah,
and
so automotive nostalgia is weird. Crazy. It's really weird.
I think, and then instead of being high and mighty about the car when you were younger, like that kind of thing, it should be more of like, you know, what kind of image do you want to have when you're going to. It kind of goes back to what Mike was saying about this is your personality when you're going into town.
The unfortunate thing about a lot of modern cars, too, is unless you're in an actual specialty car, everything looks the same now. The colors are the same. Everything appears to be the same shape, because there's an aerodynamic benefit to the way cars are built now, because it improves fuel economy and gas mileage and everything else. But cars back then didn't prescribe to common sense.
You know, of all cars, though, like, we're on the subject of the style changing, I believe it's Kia. One that their cars are looking so cool because they're trying different things.
Yeah, Kia has an automotive company.
Of all brands,
I don't know what they're talking about.
Kia has an automotive company.
Some of them are insane.
They have come along a long time, because you go from like the bargain basement Kia when they first came out, and then you look at like a Kia Stinger with a I think it had a twin turbo V6 in it.
Wow.
And
they're huge.
It was really
I just remember
really
for the cheap car that the transmissions
some
went
of these
in all
new
the
designs, like the actual look.
Oh, they actually look
futuristic.
Because what I've been saying is in the last 10 years or so, I feel like in the last 10 years,
is another one.
All of our cars have been looking like electric razors.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And some of these do have that aspect, but they're trying new things with body panels, trying new things with intakes.
So J.R. Strang makes a good point here.
Yeah.
The Tesla car generation would be telling how hard vehicles how hard vehicles were compared to their children's teleportation. Which, I mean,
good.
that's accurate. That's entirely accurate.
You guys drove places? You didn't just strap on a helmet and like talk to people in the metaverse?
Didn't
Like,
get
mention-
teleported?
I was gonna do that.
They'll
in
look
sort
at
of a
our
shorter time span.
2012 vehicles and be like, wow, they rode in that?
Yeah, like similarly,
It's so
a
dangerous.
shorter time span, right? So my mom's car that I'm like, this is too much.
Yep.
Someone who has an auto drive car is gonna be like, wow, all you had was assists.
Yeah.
What? That's so dangerous.
So the
just like what Joe was
advancement
saying.
the advancement
It's
of technology
dangerous.
probably within the last 10 years has been the most significant update of technology. Like even going from I had a 2006 GTO
Oh, that's cool. I like
to a
that.
2010 Camaro.
I like the
The
color.
difference in technology
color
and the
contrast
leap in
on that.
technology and the
That's cool.
connectivity to different things, GM's OnStar system, like all kinds of stuff. There was a huge leap in just features and functions, and it was
I know I
significant.
can literally get a letter grade my car driving,
Yeah.
like
Hyundai's
how much I
doing it
brake
too.
and stop, and then if you want, you can like upload that to your insurance. Like, dude, I got straight A's all month, and they'll consider that now. How hard you brake,
Yep.
you're stopping. The car recognizes everything, and it'll be
Kind
like
of
you're.
spooky to me.
Yeah, it's like you're
It's like having cameras look at you in your house.
It's
new
kind
Chevy
of invasive,
new
but-
Chevy Silverado
Looks at
pickup
the
trucks
styles.
actually
I don't know
tell
about
you
the color,
how
but
much
it is a cool
percent
look to
brake
it,
pad
yeah.
you have left.
That's really nice.
Yep. That was something. So European cars for the longest
one I
time
actually
had
kinda want.
brake pad wear sensors, and when you finally got to a point where it tripped the brake
My
pad
only
wear
choice is
sensor,
buying a
it
vehicle
would
that can
basically
see like
be,
6
yes, I
and
have to
7.
replace my brake
They
pads
have
and
that.
possibly my brake rotors.
This
But
is
now,
if I had the money,
GM
I would
finally
get
kind
a
of
truck car.
went around to actually a more forward thinking
Truck car.
instead of just
Truck car.
bringing your vehicle in and
That
you bring it
shows
to your
it.
mechanic and they say, oh no, you need brakes, when actually you've got like 50% brake pad left or something.
Yeah.
It says right on the dashboard you have how much percent brake
Dude,
life you actually
I
have
love it.
left.
I don't have that, but tire pressure,
Yep.
oil life, all that stuff, so helpful because like just to maintain this stuff, especially
Oh,
if
yeah.
you don't pop the hood.
Yep.
Maybe you don't even know what those areas are, or it's just a ball ache to pull the oil thing out. But
So the interesting thing about the oil life monitor, yes, it'll tell you when you need to change the oil, but because of the engines and because of the driving that people do now, if you do more highway driving, chances are you need to change your oil less.
and there's
you do more
different oil
start
grades for that too, right? I just found that out versus like if you're highway or you're just driving around. There's different viscosity.
Most automotive manufacturers will tell you the specifications, and a lot of times it changes depending on the region of the country that you're in,
Yeah.
based on the climate, effectively.
Yeah, I was
But,
blown away by all that.
Like oil life monitors are great to a point because you actually still have to check your oil. Yeah, sure, you can go that 7,000 or 8,000 miles on a single oil change now,
Wow.
and you're saving money. You don't.
I love that. Yeah.
It used to be 3,000 miles, change your oil. 3,000 miles, change your oil. 30,000 miles, change your brake pads. 50,000 miles, do your spark plugs. And now stuff is so much further in intervals, and it definitely changes vehicle maintenance
and the
from a
rhythm
standpoint.
kind of if you
Yeah.
grew up accustomed to that. Like,
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, it
It's
throw you off.
and you look at the oil life percent, but the thing about it is, yeah, sure, you can go that 8,000, 7,000, 9,000 miles without changing oil, but an internal combustion engine, part of the byproduct of that cycle is it will consume a little bit of engine oil because that's the nature of the engine. And if you go that long without simply checking your oil, and then your oil may, you might have a little bit of oil consumption, and various different manufacturers, it's different. They have different guidelines as to how much is consumed per how many miles. Your engine does go through oil, and if you don't check it, there are a lot of bits and pieces in the engine that are reliant on
The good
optimal oil
Yeah.
pressure to perform correctly. Like a lot of variable valve timing solenoids and stuff like that rely on the oil pressure of the engine to know what to do. And if you don't have the correct amount of oil in there, it's not going to operate properly, and then your engine's going to start sending codes for various
What
sensors.
cars are more picky about that? Like your Camaro, is that kind of thing you'd find that more picky about that kind of stuff?
The LS motor, depending on which particular LS, which LS family motor it was, We've got cylinder deactivation now with a lot of vehicles that have automatic transmissions.
What's up? Back in my day, my transportation was powered by gas, diesel, or electric. Now your generation use nuclear-infused teleport microchip made by Tesla and Apple.
Microsoft lost the wars.
JR Strang is awesome. I love JR Strang.
Oh my goodness.
You're the best, my dude.
Nice.
You guys were talking about something too, like the technology, like being improved versus like these people's like, yeah, this muscle car can get further. It's like you're talking about like the physicality of how they drive it too. Like it's almost like that idea of like, oh, you have all this fancy stuff. Like, it's not really, it's not the
fancy
racing. You have to put your
back to what I was saying before about being the only kid in class who didn't know what a portable CD player was. That's the feeling I'm having again, getting into newer vehicles. I only just learned that there were like, what was the indicator you told me about? I like
the lane departure.
And I'm
dude,
like, huh?
They changed. I mean,
that's how it feels right now.
I got my car 2 years ago, and it went from 0 to 60, literally like the tech that I had. And I had like, you figure like a Nissan might have like more tech and stuff than a Chevy. This Chevy like blew it up.
Chevy's doing good. Chevy's actually doing really good. So nuts. Your Chevy would either have a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder or a 2 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, one or the other. But they both use a PF64 oil filter.
I'm embarrassed. Wow. I never people have asked me that stuff. I think it's probably the first.
The 1.5 liter.
It's an all-wheel drive.
That's the more common engine. Yeah, the 1.5 liter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
I just happen to know these things.
I just don't know what they all look like and like really the full like way that it works. Like I'm starting to. The more you work on cars, you learn like a little area. It's like visiting towns. You learn this town here, and you learn this town here. But yeah, you do learn over time if you're physically the guy working on it. But
well, it's like I'm thinking of how I've done so little
what?
I've done so little studying on that too. So back to like earlier, I realized why I don't remember a lot of things is I don't actually make an effort to input the knowledge.
So you're half-assing shit is what you're saying.
Sometimes, yeah, but
okay.
Like it's all about what you actually care about. Like it's something if you're really passionate about it, you will go to learn more about it.
Keep in mind, memory isn't permanent. It gets fuzzy and grays with other stuff as time goes on.
I've had to relearn the lore of certain things.
But you want the stuff that's really important to you.
Yeah, I would say 40K right now.
I would say just keep learning, like art, gaming history, carpentry things. The more I keep learning, and like I'll watch the same video, like I know about Donkey Kong, but maybe I forgot a part of it, right? Or maybe there's a new video. But like I feel, worst case scenario, there's a chance you start to lose. We're getting better with science, but you might start to lose this stuff. But the stuff you won't lose, that real core stuff. Yeah. Like you might not remember like that you talked to like so and so yesterday because it's so new, or 10 years ago. But because you have that ingrained stuff, like it's more likely that you're gonna carry that through, and you want to know this stuff. Like you don't want to have to look it up every time.
Like the space stuff.
Or be relying on this. How many times do we Google? Like I'm apprehensive to Google just because I feel like with the cars, isn't it a cheat code? I keep storing this stuff in my mind and trying to remember.
Before I Google, I will usually do I know this? And I'll try to search in my brain. And if I don't, then I go, okay, now I can learn this. Google for the learning, not the remembering.
I use Google as a tool.
Yeah.
Because what if we didn't have it tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
What if it's all fried? Like now we're
I've always argued that one EMP would ruin everything.
Yeah.
Even in one section, it doesn't have to knock out the whole country. It would just knock out a lot.
Yeah.
We're gonna go into the breath of fresh air here.
All right.
So for this, we're gonna sort of go back.
Breath of fresh
air. What did we learn?
We're not. Well, part of it's what did we learn?
It's time for the breath.
Another part of it is
I've forgotten already.
I also want to sort of circle back.
Well, we learned grandmothers are all right.
Grandmothers are great.
They helped us out when we were young, and we had great memories.
Grandmothers are like
with the things and culture.
The glue that holds everything together.
Pretty soon, all of us will try to Google.
Like, oh my god, what was that search engine? Hold on, let me get on to Bing and try to remember what that search engine
there was.
Everyone
Bing. There was DuckDuckGo. There was let's see,
Yahoo Answers.
Well, remember when we had to hold a thing instead of just seeing it in our vision?
Ask Jeeves. There was that.
Ask Jeeves.
Yeah.
I used to ask Jeeves.
GoDaddy.com has a search engine.
You know, Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Yahoo
Tom
Answers
Hanks
got
had a
taken
search
away.
engine?
They don't have it
What are
anymore.
we talking about?
Yahoo definitely lost the internet wars.
I'm still on Yahoo with my email.
Before we go, guys,
I thought that
before
lasted
we,
forever too.
Dude,
before we go down this
I
road-
still have Yahoo's.
we're gonna get stuck here.
Yeah.
Yeah. on the subject.
What are you doing? Like a fucking
I don't know.
Ernest P.
That's-
World?
that's-
Ernest had
Flip
that
this one
some doctor weirdo, and he had the hand.
We got
Man.
no look.
You have the Swiss Guard now, buddy.
For the breath of
That's
fresh
better.
air. What I want
That
to
was better.
what I want to go back to
in
is
his ass
the-
and called him Swiss Guard.
the movies that
Wow.
include cars. I want us to talk some more about that because we
Okay.
could have got away from that with the other segments,
Little
which
bit.
is fine.
Forgot about that.
But you forgot all about it.
Forgot about everything.
So for the breath of fresh air,
Where are we
I'm
again?
do a roundtable
Who are you?
discussion a little bit of
Okay.
like
Fucking guys. You know what I'm talking about, yeah?
I feel like a little kid sitting.
These guys over here and those guys over there.
can't do that anymore.
Because you're tall enough to hit the
I
ground.
get back into the
So
bullshit.
the
Yeah.
we already sort of went over my favorites. We're not going to start with me.
Didn't we go over our favorite movie
No,
covers?
we didn't. We went over like examples and like ones we could think of. But like, what's your favorite?
What about the ones you can't think
What's
of?
your favorite movie
Going with this.
that featured like a car?
Well, then, yeah, the Mad Max was really cool.
Yeah.
Mad Max is very prominent in as much as
I feel like we kind of established that Mad Max was our.
All of like our.
it's also an evolution of that, the black on black, or the fact that in the first 5 minutes of Fury Road that was taken away. Max has everything taken away
Made me
again.
so mad.
And I'm pretty sure
I
that
love
came
that
out
car
the
so
year I
much.
was
That was
born.
intentional. That
I
was
know.
intentional
So
for.
these have existed
Yeah.
for our whole
Remind
lives.
me,
Yeah.
did they brand him or tattoo him or something like that?
They
What'd do?
tattooed him. Yep, they tattooed
remember
him.
what it
They
was.
tattooed his raging feral. They tattooed his blood type. That was being done by the organic mechanic.
Yeah, that was. I know their sense of taking something from him. That was his dignity too.
They were about to brand him when he broke free,
That's
and
right.
then
That's
almost.
why I remember it funny.
Yeah.
Honorable mention, shout out Evil Dead. What's that car?
The Oldsmobile Delta 88.
I knew he knew
That
it.
was an early 70s
Ooh, Death
Oldsmobile
Proof.
Delta 88.
Oh,
Death Proof
or
was another
Thomas
good one.
Jane's Punisher car.
That was a GTO. That was a Pontiac Le Mans, maybe. It was either a GTO or a Le Mans.
What was
He
that?
switched over to the
what was
green
their
car
Death
after Hank
Proof?
Heck tried to kill
Mustang?
him.
Which one?
Death Proof? Like one Stuntman Mike had? Wasn't that like a vanishing
He had
point?
a Vanishing Point was a Challenger. No, Challenger. Yeah, that was a Challenger. Yeah, Vanishing Point. Then you had Two Lane Blacktop. You had American Graffiti.
Yeah.
You had Milner and the character that Indiana Jones shows up in, which is great. That was a cool. There were some Dazed and Confused. There's a ton of different vehicles in there. McConaughey drove a 70 Chevelle in Dazed and Confused, but there was so many different cars in that. There was Benny had a 71 Chevy pickup truck, and there was that was a wild movie because I love Dazed and Confused. That's a fantastic
I don't
movie.
want to like rewatch Fury Road.
Fury Road is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I will watch that any day of the week.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Let's watch that.
Yeah, we can definitely watch
I'm
that.
totally
That's
on
the
board with
newest
that.
one, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is the newest one. There's a reason why I saw Fury Road probably 5 or 6 times in the movie.
Did you like cars?
Because I love that movie. That movie was incredible, and every single viewing gave me something different. I walked away with something different every single time I watched that
So
movie.
give us something that you walked away from that most people don't, in your opinion. About it.
Initially, you go in and you watch the movie, and you're overwhelmed by the shock and awe factor
yeah.
of everything that happens. But then, as you're watching it again and again, so you've seen this and you've focused on this, but then, oh wow, the soundtrack that accompanies this. I didn't notice it before because it's such a visual movie. You're overwhelmed by that, that aspect of the movie. But then you go in again and you watch the movie a second time, and you're like, oh wow, no, the audio of the soundtrack and everything, the rise and the crescendo of the really hard hitting points, or the way that the intensity builds, and it's such a great soundtrack, and it is flawless in its execution.
I think I was asking about it. Like I'm kind of blown away, like, because I think of like James Cameron used like exposition like during like a car chase, and it was a way like those boring moments to heighten it up. The Terminator chasing, I'm from the future, and if you think about that movie, it really like takes that to a whole new level. It's like if you were to summarize that plot, it's like cars drive one end of the desert, drive back. I mean, that's all that happens, and the whole thing's constantly moving. It doesn't stop, so it's perfect. But they explain everything in this world within just a constant chase, much like the Terminator had done. You know, I think that was one of the first examples how they delivered exposition and like action scenes.
I'd like to build on that for a second.
That's cool.
One thing I love about what they had Kyle Reese do was he's so over re-explaining the future. That's his reality.
It's the future.
He's like, I'm from the fucking future.
No, this is my
just
existence.
follow the rules, damn it.
Yeah, don't.
And they're like, how do you know this? I said it. You dumb bitch. I'm from the future. Like that's his. He's just exhausted. With like, yes, okay, I have to relay all this future information onto this person who I know isn't going to get any of it, and I'm gonna have to re-explain stuff.
Sarah Connor is the biggest turnaround in a character that goes from being a side character in a movie to being like the ultimate badass in Terminator 2. And I still think Terminator 2 is a prime example of exactly, absolutely. Terminator the first one set the stage. Terminator 2 gives us something so wild.
She's
and
come a
over the
long
top.
way from being a waitress has ice cream dumped in her pocket.
I've never seen anything like that. I saw that in the theater, and and anytime something's new, that's when you really get me, because I'm bored so quickly, and the template moves along, and it's like, well, who's gonna change? Who's gonna change? And then every once in a while, somebody changes it. It's like, that's the new shit. And everything else, and that was like one of those moments where. That in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So I think you're motivated by character development.
Well, so oddly enough, vehicles, Jurassic Park, that brought back the Ford Explorer. It absolutely solidified the Ford Explorer, because everybody wanted one. Everybody absolutely wanted to have one of those Ford Explorers. Granted, you couldn't get it with the giant, bubble top that were on it. But everybody wanted a Ford Explorer, or they wanted
the Jeep.
The Jeep.
I was thinking the Jeep. Yeah, that's what my first thing was.
Nedry dies in the Jeep, and they Jeff Goldblum, when he has his leg busted and they're trying to drive away from the Tyrannosaurus, and they're just they're like it's like the chase scene with the Tyrannosaur right behind it. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear.
It's like to this day, when people are like, I have that and I have that color, and they rock it, I'm like, I'm blown away. And you guys talk about like fantasy cars, and I said I like muscle cars and stuff, but the novelty of driving the Ghostbusters, or the Jurassic Park, like I've always been more into movies, so that connection would be super cute and geeky to me, as much as it's kind of corny, but you know.
Revisiting that, the Transformers movie when it came out, in
Bumblebee.
2000, Bumblebee. So we were talking about this earlier, Bumblebee, and yes, okay, fine. The Transformers movie does play out like a giant commercial for the U.S. military and General Motors. I get that entirely. That aside,
littered with toxic masculinity and misogyny and fireworks.
I absolutely love the reveal, and it gives me goosebumps every single time when it goes from the junky mid 70s, like 75, 76, junky Camaro.
Pardon me, prefers that one.
I love that car too. I absolutely, hands down, love that car.
That's cool.
And then it goes to the sleek, and the interesting thing, as we discussed earlier, they knew what the concept of the Camaro was supposed to look like. They didn't have one for the production purposes of the movie. They took a GTO, a 2006 GTO, which was close to the chassis specifications, and they built the new Camaro on top of that. And there's one scene that shows the instrument cluster, so you know exactly what kind of car that it actually is. And the 2006, 2005 GTOs had a very specific instrument cluster. And it's like, no, that's actually a GTO with a Camaro body on top of it. But
You're like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I know.
I get goosebumps at the reveal of that car. I watched that movie with my nephew, and he's cheering, and I'm cheering and pumping my fist right alongside of him because it's such an exciting moment, and it kind of helps that I have one of those Camaros because, and we kind of drifted away from it earlier, but
It's actually
it's a
closet millionaire.
It's a movie car. When you think about it, it's it's a hero car, and it's got the Transformers logos on the side. It's got the logos on it everywhere. And when a kid sees that car, and I will never forget, I was driving along, and it was just a leisurely drive. I wanted to go out for a spin, and I'm just kind of cruising along, going through a small town somewhere. There's a guy walking with his kid, and the kid sees the car first, and he's pointing, and he's jumping up and down with excitement, and he's
Bumblebee
because exactly he thinks that it's
gonna
Bumblebee
turn into Bumblebee,
and that it's just driving along, and you see the dad with just this huge smile on his face, and it becomes a universal iconic symbol. And it's just one of those cool things. I've had people pull up beside me and go, "I love your car," like just in traffic, just roll down the window, love that thing.
Yeah, they don't do that for me.
It's the same with the you guys have probably all seen these guys, like the main Ghostbusters, like much like bikers, they have their own chapters, they have their own logos. And I've been to cons with those guys, and their suits they kit bash. I know you can buy them now and stuff, but they're like, we go to hardware stores, we build all this stuff, but they have the car.
Yes.
And these guys, they literally like have the things that pull out with all the gear, and I'm like, I'm so blown away. Like, I'm looking at this car that you just see whipping by.
Like it just came right off the set.
And then people, like, one year they had it outside, and just joy of Ghostbusters, busting makes me, like they just yell and stuff, and it's
when you've got a car like that becomes culturally relevant. You've got the kit from Knight Rider. You've got the Ghostbusters car. You've got the DeLorean time machine. The General Lee, exactly. You've got the Ford Explorer, the Jeep from Jurassic Park.
I have a cool thing about the General Lee. In Cyberpunk 2077, the game, they have a car that you can get through a mission that is a futuristic version of the General Lee.
Oh wow!
And it's like the version of the Confederate flag in Cyberpunk is the new USA flag.
Right.
Okay. There was the Second American Civil War that happened in that world.
They're updating.
So the new General Lee in Cyberpunk has that flag on the top instead. And I'm like, that's fascinating.
And that's an interesting phenomenon too. We're talking about cars and symbols, like, that's become a controversial symbol, especially we're Northern New Englanders, and but as a kid, it didn't mean shit. It was just a good old boy.
There was a television show built around.
Slide his ass across the hood of that thing and jump in.
They were just cool, hanging out with old Uncle Jesse
with their mom jeans, looking into that thing.
Yeah, and then the cops, they just made him look goofy and like you challenged authority.
Actually, the cops are part of my favorite part of that show.
I mean, my dad was always funny. He's like, everybody always wanted to be
Roscoe.
There's Roscoe
P. Coltrane.
Yeah, that's
and then
right.
There's Boss Hogg. And my dad's like, everybody wanted to be the fucking the Dukes of Hazzard, right? They wanted to be what the fuck? They had the Dukes of Hazzard. They had a cool car, but they hung around their cousin. They didn't even have the pretty girl they hung around with their family. And they were poor. Now Boss Hogg, he controlled the city, and he had the Cadillac, and and I was like, you got a good point, Dad.
Yeah,
he was the guy in church. He was the cool guy. But
Johnny Knoxville and Sean William Scott doing the updated version of Dukes of Hazzard.
Ages.
And they addressed that whole thing with the flag on the roof and everything. And they basically wound up like kind of driving along with their tail tucked between their legs because they basically got read the riot act, and it was in a hysterical way of doing it too. But I'll have to find that on like a YouTube clip at some point. It's great.
Oh my god, what was the show?
You got to be careful with symbols. I've always said that as an artist, because like what you think it means isn't the same to other
That's
people.
like Dimebag Darrell. He had a rebel flag guitar, and people read that in a much different way. But back in those days,
I saw them back in '96.
I just recently saw them. When you had that, it wasn't because it meant you believed a certain thing from the Civil War. It meant you were a rebel. Like that's what it symbolized. That's all it meant. It was that's all it came down to.
Yeah, that was
like
my
you're
dad's
a rebel.
view of it. Like he saw it more as like, I guess, screw authority. Like, they were fighting.
That was the whole point. That's why people rocked it for
poor
so long.
versus rich, and I can see the appeal. Like that's and to them,
you want a symbol that represents that you don't follow the rules, and that's the symbol that they used.
Speaking of symbols, though,
sorry,
you can take it the entire other direction. This actually segues into something I was meaning to say for a while now.
Okay.
I love Futurama, right? 100%. Absolutely love Futurama.
Here we go. We're really.
I watched it. I watch it every year. I watch every episode every year because I love it that much.
I had.
I'm like, I don't have time to watch TV.
I'm pretty obsessed with that show.
I got a turquoise Saturn View as my sort of mid-range car to get my credit better.
Did you put the Planet Express logo on it?
I bought a giant Planet Express logo, and I got 2 of them, so I could have it on both doors.
That's so cool.
So I looked like the ground transport.
You look like rocket ships.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. I like this. So has anyone else done ridiculous
car
stuff with their cars?
And I got the reaction. Yeah. It took like 2 years of owning this vehicle for someone at a McDonald's window to be like, dude. It's like, yay, finally.
I get
it's
it.
Great. It's so great. It like when
you don't see it's the people getting excited and not saying something to you.
Yeah, there's some people that liked it, but it was like more subtle.
There's probably thousands of people that see Mike go by in his Camaro and they're like, Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Like he's just blasting tunes and don't know.
So you can use symbols to get a good reaction too. Like if you know that it's generally universally liked, you could do the other way around.
Like put a Decepticon logo on a real shit box. You know,
that's fun.
You could do that.
Like
absolutely.
Like that. It's fun.
Really fun.
I went into a campsite. I was meeting my cousin to go camping for a weekend, and I pulled into the campsite, and there were tons of families and stuff like that all over the place, and you could hear all the kids who were on the other side of the tree line. They saw the car pull in, and all you could hear is, "It's Bumblebee's here!" And it was just like. It was cool. It was just so cool.
Very cool.
A lot of fun. But circling back around to all of the dumb things that one might have done to their vehicle, I have a particular one.
Oh my gosh.
So in my various car purchases,
imagining all the things.
I wound up with it's an 84 Oldsmobile Delta 88 that Godsmack used to drive around in before they popped off and became huge. So this was also the car that had the broken motor mount. So as you would accelerate, the engine torque would pull the engine up, and the fan blade would actually hit the fan shroud. So you knew you were hitting the gas pedal a little bit too hard when it started going. So you had to kind of back off a little bit.
I've heard cars doing that. I never knew what that sound was.
Well, it depends on what it is. But,
it's so clear now.
So
I was that to my car.
This was an 84 Delta 88. It had a 307 Oldsmobile engine. It was this weird kind of like light brown, like tan, and it had a chocolate brown interior with a bench seat up front, which was the most comfortable damn thing on the face of the planet. Bench seats are a whole other conversation that I will go into down the line. But I took this car and I drove it around for a while, and I had an opportunity to buy a donor car, a 77 Oldsmobile Cutlass. And I bought this Cutlass, and I pulled the wheels and tires off because it had the Oldsmobile Rally wheels, which were these really cool ornate steel wheels with trim rings and center caps. I bolted those right up to this thing. I pulled out the drivetrain. It was a 350 cubic inch, so a 5.7 liter, and they called it an Oldsmobile rocket motor. So I pulled the engine and transmission out, dropped it into the Delta 88. So I got rid of the Wheezy 307, dropped in this 350, hooked everything up. I then put stripes on the car, so black stripes on top of this weird tannish brownish color, and then I found the rear lip spoiler off of a off of like an old Z28 in a boneyard. So I painted the lip spoiler black, and I put it in, and I actually wired up.
2003.
I wired up. This was probably early 2000s or late. Could even be late 90s.
The spoilers and all the modding.
Oh yeah.
So you've got to show some pictures.
But this was a factory spoiler on a factory spoiler on a Z28. So it was a little short spoiler. So I actually modified it to fit on the trunk lid. I hooked up the third brake light, so it worked. Everything worked, and I put Godsmack stickers on the rear bumper. So there was one Godsmack sticker there, one Godsmack
you went all
there.
out with it.
Oh yeah, and then I actually bought 442 because Oldsmobile had the 442. So I bought GM 442 stickers and I stuck them on the fenders. And it was just this ridiculous, it wasn't super fast down low because it had the factory axle in it. So it was more of an economy-minded rear differential. Mm-hmm. So it had really tall gears. But that meant if you got it out into the highway and you just hit the go pedal, the thing would just go and go and go and go. And it was just hysterical because it was this huge boat of a car. I even took the lower air deflector out of a pickup truck. And I cut it and trimmed it down so it fit the front bumper. And where the tow hooks were, I actually mounted auxiliary fog lights in, so everything looked like it should have been
blowing out of the water. Anything I've ever tried,
and it was it was hysterical and awesome and so much fun.
The most I've got is I had a 2000. I had a 2007 Ford Focus, and it was honestly one of my favorite cars because I could just zip around Colorado Springs without any problems at all. It's just a good, zippy car. I could do what I want with it. And I knew what it was. It's just a little Ford Focus. And I would rev the little fucking thing at, like, kit cars at traffic lights, and they just blow me out of the water. And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know what you expected. I mean, I'm driving a 07 Focus. So what I ended up doing is I put the chrome Hemi stickers on the sides and the V8 stickers on the sides, and I started like really fucking with people. I put like these big badass things all over it to all these cosmetic
sticker of a raised engine.
Yeah, I put all this really stupid crap all over it, and I put I remember just putting all these cosmetic ridiculous things, and it's a 7 Focus. So you pull up and this guy looks out his window, he sees my car with Hemi V8 on the side, and he's just like fuck you, and he just disappears into the distance. And I'm like, for me,
that's why you did it, right?
For me, the fun was just fucking with people with that thing. Like they would see, like, is that a V8? No.
I was mentioning to Storm earlier. His wardrobe and his black and red he really loves. When I first met my wife, I drove like a 92, 93 Chevy Cavalier 2-door, had the sunroof. Got into an accident with it, hit a deer, so the hood kind of crumpled, and then I put a new hood on it. And it was a red car, and then I sprayed it flat black, so carbon fiber, hood, and then I put like fake leather seats in it. I took out all the cup holder that would pull out of the dash and all the little pieces around the radio, popped those all off, sprayed them red plastic coat, put them all back in this black dash, had a Dice and Betty Page air freshener. We wired up, I knew a radio guy, we wired up 2 separate amps, put in like a 1500 watt sound system sub in the back, just blast music out of this thing. I thought I was the coolest, most badass dude ever. That was probably one of my favorite. Well, Chevy now is my favorite, but this
put rally lights on that Focus.
Dude, that was we just got it, and that was around the same time, like the Pimp My Ride era, all this stuff, and
West Coast Customs. That was what Exhibit and West Coast Customs, and
it was bullshit, right?
That whole show was a train wreck. And if you look at some of the behind the scenes stories about that show, wow.
They didn't fix like the engines. They were still shit cars. They basically just put electronics in them, and then they pulled them out afterwards.
Yeah.
And
because the car was suddenly illegal to have on the road.
Yeah, it was
had to remove stuff.
All facade, a lot of it.
Yeah.
It was a giant commercial, really, for those.
Oh yeah,
too. And,
West Coast
Exhibit was great. It's like he's just coming in.
Oh yeah,
look at this fucking piece of shit.
He I think him out of everyone on that show was the one having the most amount of fun. because he legitimately gave no crap
He
about
just
it.
came in and trolled like people, like basically on their cars.
I mean, wouldn't that be a fun show for you to host, though?
Yeah,
You just show up to someone's house, you're like, look at this piece of dog shit.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm gonna blaze one and go into the project, fuck with this guy, and then we're gonna bring him back, and I'm like, look at your fucking car, and get him all hyped up, and then we're gonna rip the stuff up and tell him fuck off, I guess. But
You signed a waiver. You signed a waiver.
Well, they actually did get to keep the cars. I saw a TikTok video of someone bought a car from that era.
Oh, yeah?
This
Yeah.
van.
Oh
and,
yeah,
and it was
Tavares.
completely-
Yeah,
I saw that
Tavares
video.
did.
yeah, completely destroyed. Like by the time they.
oh
found
yeah,
it.
there's lots of information at this
Like,
point.
it had the nice
that
paint job
It
and all
wasn't
that
the
on it
greatest
still,
detail.
though.
It was just
But
a
the interesting
show.
thing, everything that the internet gives us after the fact is just so damn incredible.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Like discovering a lost civilization.
Pretty much.
I think it's the birth of the true whole culture identity to where, you know, I had like a couple nerdy friends in this redneck town and stuff, and it took 20 something years to find these people. And we talked about these ideas of nerdathons with music and gatherings of nerds. That's today's cons. And a lot of this, we've met through Twitch and whatnot.
Mhm.
You meet your tribe. You meet,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, there's a million of us, but we're not all in the same town. And I think co-cultures have had a really fortuitous time to just build, like, and
Gaming-
we all know each other because of this shit. Really.
Gaming and Twitch has been one of those things that have just exponentially increased the amount of amazing people that I'm able to meet and talk to and interact with, and everybody that's out there. It's fun for me. It is, you know, these people are awesome. Every single one of them are so fantastic, and I genuinely appreciate all of the interaction that I get. You know, like even over on my own channel and just playing video games.
Little shout out to Mike's followers there.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, you know, I know you guys through cons and Twitch, and the funny thing with Viking and I, we met right before the pandemic
Yeah.
through Lumberg, and then he got into streaming. Lumberg didn't, and we streamed, and we really got to know each other through the metaverse, right?
Yep.
But then when we all got back together a couple years later, it was weird because like I knew him more than I knew Lumberg now because of that experience. And it's just how this technology works out and builds relationships and connects people is amazing. And like this past summer, I met one of the Dreamers Arcade followers. Spacey came up and we went out and did things. And I've gone to Utah and met Miss Lisa Face and her husband. It's wild, like that. Where you can travel the world now and meet all these people that are like your best friends.
I went to a car show, and I was at a car show, and one of the people who just happened to find my channel because I played Forza, you know, and you know, we got along and everything like that. And he was local to this car show that I was going to, and we all met up at a car show, and it was great. And it's funny because it's one of those things of, no, actually, he's the same on his channel as he is like actually walking around talking to people.
I think that's another thing that makes your channel as successful as it is, because
Don't be fake,
you're authentic. You're not like these guys who are hyperactive. They have no base level to their personality. It's always like these big blown out proportion personalities.
Yeah, these fucking
you know these
obnoxious
guys. You know
get on
these
there
guys
and
don't
wave
just.
their hands and
You know they
fuck
don't
off
just.
burritos,
Yeah.
do pizza dances and raps.
You
They're
know that
fucking
they don't just-
sensationalist assholes.
You know these guys don't just like, you know, sit in their house by themselves freaking out like that. This is all a facade. With Mike, he doesn't have that facade. He's just chill about it.
He's laughing. He's like,
I think the most-
he's just like he is in real life on his show.
I love it though. I
I'm
absolutely love
genuinely nice a lot of the time, and I bust balls the other time. I'm sorry. It's a neutralizer. We're just keeping the air clean. I don't want you guys to think I like you too much, but you know.
Joe is a surprise though.
Surprise?
If you read Joe's books and then you meet Joe, and
Well, whoever reads their friend's shit,
I think
you definitely don't.
I think he'd kill me. I'd be like, this guy's a fucking slap me.
Yeah, but Stephen
But then
King,
he's like,
you know, they're
he's a
like,
nice
what do
guy.
you do with all these horrible ideas in their head?
Yeah.
And I give them to you, like, and even Colchin on Dudesy,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, if I don't write, dude, like, I'll go crazy.
Yeah, some of my scenes are pretty intense. I was telling,
It's important. It's
man, CP and I had like 4 hours to talk yesterday. So
It's rough, dude.
so,
Turned off the radio, got serious.
some of this stuff we turned off the radio so we could talk serious shit because I was listening to my music. I listened to deathcore. It was just like we're trying to get personable and you just hear
He took a shower this morning and all of a sudden he goes, double bass. Yeah! I'm like, what a relaxing fucking shower. He's probably not punching the water like in the air.
actually I learned in my life that I need to be my own hype man. That's the only reason why I've had any success with my life.
That's good. That's good.
Ultimately, no one's going to do it for you.
Yep.
Like, you're
So-
friends to an extent, but like, you know, a lot of times it's like even hard to find time to
At the end of the
get
day,
away
it's
from your
you.
own work to enjoy their work. And it's
So-
like, yeah, no, I feel that, man. You gotta fucking hype yourself
So-
and make the
Dude.
shit that you need to make. Like,
Yeah.
It's
So-
like having friends with so many different Twitch channels. You want to be in all of them, supporting all of them,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
but you've
So-
only got so much time.
There was
Yeah.
someone that I used to call a professional lurker. He would have every person he wanted to lurk in. He'd make their windows tiny, and he had like 10 of them on one screen. And he would just like turn up the audio on one if he wanted to hear what was going on, and then turn
Right.
it back down, and then go to the next one.
Wow.
Go to the next one.
That's
Chat,
awesome.
Chat in each one, so he
Chat
counted
says, hey
as
guys, how are you?
Aha, Rambata!
Rumbata.
Dude! It's so good to see you, my friend.
Roomba Baba. That is what I always say in my head when I
I thought Roomba
and I know
too,
it's
man,
wrong,
like-
but I know it's wrong. Don't get me wrong.
We're just broken in the brain.
So
No-
we've
no
got
shade.
Bulgaria represented here,
Hey, all right.
Rumen,
So-
Aka.
aka Rambata.
Full disclosure,
well-
I don't think I can point to it on a map.
That's one way to say it.
Well, yeah, that's one way to say it.
Rumen,
He's
Aka.
a really good dude, and
Rambata.
he found my channel a long time ago, and you know, it's one of those things that the video game bridges the gap, but the conversation and the connections that form around that game are the best thing, are absolutely hands down the best
Oh.
thing.
I remember what I was saying before I got sidetracked about the video.
Do it.
Did I just cut you off? I'm sorry, Mike.
No.
Okay. What
I think we cut you off like 18 different
all
times.
right. So a little more soft spoken. I was telling CP in the ride on the way to New Hampshire that there was a scene in my book In the Sky where a dragon kills somebody, and in my story, these dragons don't breathe fire, and sure they can throw you through the air, but I'm like, man, I have to have like a fresh take on like how dragons can like aim people. So I went to the internet and I found like birds of prey and what they do. And what they essentially do is they stomp their prey to death with their talons, and these talons are like 6 inches long sometimes. And I said, man, that would be pretty sick way to kill someone with a dragon in a story. So I did that, and I originally started doing a lot of my writing around horror. Like I'm very familiar with writing horror, so I just kind of like a switch snapped, and I just went straight into horror mode for a second. And then later on, my editor was going over, and she's like, initially I wrote this book for my kids because the other books that I've written are just simply too dark for my kids to read. And so I'm trying to keep it a little bit on the lighter side. I mean, obviously there's action, there's going to be war scenes, but like, you know, ultimately it's a little more low key than the other ones. And so I'm writing the scene, and my editor's like, Joe, you got to really scale back this scene. And it wasn't that it was particularly gory, it was just fucked up. And my editor's like, you gotta like really tone this scene down. So I ended up rewriting almost the whole chapter because I had just like I tapped into that real dark place for a second there, and I had to fix it. It was just kind of funny.
Tone is tough, man, because being an art maker, like I always want to have like the darkness and the humor. Dark humor is my vibe, but I always had a hard time. Like I would make an art project that, especially something, I had this one thing, it was a VHS and it had double side, and on the front it's really kind of funny, but then on the back it gets really dark, so it's sometimes twist, and And I don't feel that jar, like in my personality. Like I'm here, there emotionally. I can downshift like so quick. So yeah, I could see like, and then what if you want to create an extreme contrast? Does it ruin the tone of something? But
in this, it just felt out of place because it was just that single scene out of the 110,000 words I wrote. There were 2,000 words that were just very, very different.
So it's like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It just didn't fit the voice of the story, and the story had a specific voice.
Because I'd watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then I'm not going to spoil anything, but tonally, the last 20 minutes
way different,
way different, but it was like such a contrast, and I was like, I loved the shift in the tone and the emotion. But you know, some people would say, oh no, don't do that, but I'm always in the gray area of like contrasting and how you come at something. And
for me, when I wrote Janie, what I really wanted as far as contrast go is most people don't pick up on it. I might have been
give him like a high five or something.
All right. One of the subtle things that I did, maybe too subtle, is the adults in Janie. Janie is a 12-year-old girl in the story, and she runs into other kids, and she has to fight monsters. It's very gory and dark and messed up.
Monsters, dope.
Yeah, I made up like cosmic horror monsters and stuff. In fact, there's a trypophobia toad in it.
I think you lost him. He's looking for cosmic monsters now.
So
no, I was just kind of looking at the accoutrement that we could use to dispatch cosmic monsters.
Yeah, we have an SKS. We have 3 swords that need to be sharpened.
So
I have an idea for all of that later.
Okay,
we'll revisit this.
All right,
okay.
Cool.
So
better not be like naked stuff.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Not again.
We're not going to tell the chat about our special cuddle time.
Don't worry about it.
You guys had that cuddle time.
It was delicious.
Mike just watched from the corner.
Never woke up.
No. I was way too comfortable where I was. And when that
Mike's
air mattress,
I like to watch almost always dressed as Superman.
when that air mattress kind of airs down a little bit, it becomes very difficult to get out of that air mattress.
You're like enveloped in a little plastic hammock of sorts.
So anyways, what I did is in Janie, I had it so that the adults were the only ones that were actually like swearing and foul-mouthed and all fucked up. So I really wanted to have that contrast between these kids who are very clearly victims in this universe. The whole concept is, think it's very much a combination of Lovecraft meets The Labyrinth by Jim Henson.
Whoa!
That's why I was into that
it's a brilliant
notion
concept.
of it.
Yeah.
Like,
And Matt's got on a shelf over there. But the whole point of it is, she goes into this world to save her sister, who's been kidnapped by the Vulture Queen. And while she's there, like, sure, there are other people there, but she learns that the people the people who are least trustworthy are the adults. And when the adults were involved with scenes, I kind of fell into the darkness with it because I've been that kid around other adults that scare the crap out of me and have ulterior motives and stuff like that. So I really just kind of tapped into that, and that's where I, as far as contrast to things that I've written, I think Janie really has the best with it, especially with the opening chapter. It's just the opening chapter, so I'm not spoiling anything, but she essentially has to raise her younger sister for both her mother and stepfather, and her mother and stepfather are not only terrible to each other, but to Janie and her sister, which is what causes Janie to become the maternal figure in that sister's life.
You ever watched the movie Precious?
No, I haven't. I know the one you're talking about, but I haven't seen it. But essentially, that's basically I went with a lot of contrasts with that story because each scene is vastly different, and I really wanted to just kind of keep it going with a very different. I wanted to have each chapter an unexpected type of chapter, and I also kind of had a list of primal fears that most human beings have, and I wanted to play onto those, like the fear of being alone, the fear of, for me, I have a pretty big fear of like swamps. I don't like swamps very much.
There's just fear of dying alone.
I I don't, because
No.
I have too many kids to have that fear now.
That's true.
You can't even use the toilet without actually.
We got a long way from we drove the fuck away from automotive.
Yeah,
Now
we
we're
did.
talking about.
You'd like a
you
peaceful-
don't want to die alone, Joe?
You want a peaceful death.
Oh my god, man.
I've already told you
I
last
told
night
you
that
how
I
I
was.
want to die.
I told you
I'm
I
the
was
Mark
already
Twain
comfortable with dying on the dog bed last
I'm
night.
sure you're like,
I'm gonna not.
On a paddle boat in the middle of the mighty Mississippi.
No, anyone ever seen the Adventures of Mark Twain, the
Yeah.
claymation?
Yes,
That was my
with
big
with the
inspiration.
demon scene, right?
Yeah, well, that's crazy. But what
he
the
like creates
intention-
life and he kills it right in front of the little kids.
Mhm. The intention of that movie, which I saw when I was like a little kid, was Halley's Comet came through in the 80s,
Yeah.
and it only comes so often. And there's a story of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain being born around the beginning of Halley's Comet, and then like this connection. And
Samuel Longhorn Clemens.
it's so like the animated film is this idea, and it recounts his life and duality, and he gets in this giant hot air balloon machine. He's going to fly into Halley's Comet. So I always said, not knowing anything about the world, that's fucking romantic notion. At 5 years old, Halley's Comet's gonna be back. Yeah, I think I'm like 87. That's how long I want to live, and maybe I'll get a hot air balloon and go into space and asphyxiate. Who gives a fuck at that point? And but like that's my perfect vision of death. So if I die tomorrow, keep me around and put me in the comments somehow if you want to be
I'm
romantic.
at the point where if we're gonna get existential about it,
I swear.
I'm at the point in my life where
That's where I took it, guys.
I'm at the point in my life where I've had more trials and tribulations than most people my age, and I feel very confident in saying that too.
I'll go to pain war with you anytime, buddy.
Make a pissing contest out of trauma.
Dude, we would fucking write a list from here back to Maine.
So anyways,
I got a foot out. I can't fucking.
Yeah, oh no, TOS.
Anyways, I
just fall over.
I lost it. He said something. I totally forgot what I was saying.
So was Mark Twain born and died on the same year the comet flew?
That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was saying. So I'm at a point in my life where I finally feel like content with what I have. I'm not sure I have ambition. I finally have
Roboto, had
ambitions and things that I want to accomplish. Sure, but I have a wife who cares about me. I have several kids who I absolutely adore every moment with, and I live in a house that's bigger than most people in my neighborhood, and I have a running vehicle. I have a job that I love. I get to write in my free time, and I also write blogs for a website. And those are all things that, and sometimes I get to play Darktide with Mike, and that's fucking awesome to me. I'm really content with. I'm honestly
enjoy Darktide.
I honestly feel so content with my life at this point. I've had to mature a lot in my life at a very early age, and I feel like, finding contentness in your life is ultimately what can create like happiness, you might say, in life. Because
kick a little over
to get into the existential part of it, I feel like if something did happen to me,
Zen master.
I don't think that I don't think I would have
Wai Chan Kane.
I don't think I would have any regrets about anything if something happened to me, like on the ride home or something like that. I might feel pretty bad if I almost killed CP, but I would. But
CP would be like, "Oh man,
don't worry."
Almost might. Almost might.
So I'm
I
like,
feel bad for you when my wife finds out.
yeah. But
Let's hope you die all the way.
I have a certain set of skills.
what I'm trying to get at is like, I'm so content with my life at this point that I feel like if something did happen to me, it wouldn't really, if I had some consciousness past that, it wouldn't upset me very much because I have a life that is exactly where I want it to be right now. And I think that that's a really important place to be, especially for me specifically. That's an important place for me to be. And that's not without ambition. I mean, you can still, I'm trying to publish one book a year. And so that comes with, like little things I want to be ambitious about, working on my writing career and all of that. But at the same time, I'm at a point in my life where I'm happy. So I'm not really worried if something did happen to me, because I'm not like, oh no, give me just a few more seconds to do blank. Like, no, I think I've done pretty good. So feel I would like to be able to, in the end, I was saying this to you guys last night, I would love to be able to eventually, when my day comes, meet death with a sense of indifference rather than existential dread.
You could be like, who's this guy?
I wanted it to be like a real Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey thing. I always love to picture death as just like
William Sadler.
And playing Twister with him. Best two out of three.
I love that. I love that. They beat him at checkers and all the other games, and they just house him. It's like, wait, we can choose any game? Yes. Well, there we go.
You never played these games, Death.
Nope. But I want to segue into what we were kind of eyeballing over here. Do you know the movie art for like Conan the Barbarian?
Yes.
Yes.
Like
You know
Frank Rosetta kind of stuff,
The
right?
one for National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yes.
So it's Chevy Chase or it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they're there at the top and they're holding up a sword or
The
something like
original
that.
Star Wars.
But
thing
like
like
a
that.
Struzen almost.
But
like,
then let's throw in some Charlie's Angels. Okay, you following me here?
Mhm.
Get swords and a gun over
We
here,
do have
bro.
swords and a gun over
We
there.
could make the most badass picture.
3 swords and a goddamn gun.
Yeah. Right?
Yep.
How cool would this be?
do you have a
It's pretty
sledgehammer?
There's
Yeah,
there's a
one right
hammer right
there.
there. But there's gotta be somebody who's holding the sword up above their head or doing the
We'll
it's
do-
gotta be straight up
Yeah.
and in the middle.
We'll do a Ryzen
I
mine.
think we should do it with Mike because Mike's
calendar.
the tallest.
We could do like Ninja Turtle archetypes, like the Greek humor.
It's also Mike's idea, so it's only fairies at the center of that.
Of course.
Are we all different Ninja Turtles? Like, who?
Well, you two are the same color flannel. We're the same color flannel, so we've got
But I'm
50-50.
gonna give him Mikey
50-50.
over. I'm gonna give him Mikey
Yeah.
over Raph though.
it's interesting to see how the turtles' personalities have evolved
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
diverged from their original archetypes.
I
and
really
stuff
don't
like that.
know. I didn't grow up watching them, or
Well, you know
Oh,
the four
yeah.
humors, like in Greek mythology.
I
like,
don't even know. Well, yeah, I know where their names come from, but I just
mean, it's
I
an
don't
archetype
know.
of
I don't even know
characters that-
like which one the purple is or orange. Like, I
Donatello.
don't even. The point
Michelangelo.
is, I don't even know who's who.
But,
I
like
just know who
Fantastic
Spencer is.
Four, Sex and the City. There's always these four people that have they have wildly different personalities, and they kind of resemble this
Yeah.
archetype, like
Mhm.
the badass vengeance, the loner, the leader, the fool,
Mhm,
like
yeah.
all these different things. And so, I guess you're the fool. But I'm
It just doesn't.
I'm a Michelangelo that
Unblinking.
wanted it
Mhm.
to be a
I'm cool with
Raphael,
that.
I think.
That brings me back to People Under the Stairs. We'll revisit that.
I'm
revisit
also
that.
the person under the stairs.
But you're
I don't know what
you're a
what
bit
you're getting at.
Donatello though.
I might be, yeah.
Like
the hero
I need
characters.
Donatellos around me. My wife's a
I'm the
Donatello.
one who surprises you. Like I am a goof, and I have like rudimentary knowledge of some things, but then every now and then, like I come in clutch, so to speak.
That's Donnie like.
Yeah.
People Under the Stairs, which I think was John Carpenter.
I still haven't seen it.
Really? Ooh, it was a story about
I heard it.
gentrification.
I heard it's amazing.
It is a very good film.
Well, we so far
But-
we got 3 movies on our movie list. We're gonna add
We're
some.
not gonna end up watching.
No,
it.
Fury Road's on that
watch
list now. It's happening.
We've
Fury Road.
got
Yeah.
that was a very early Ving Rhames role actually, but the younger character, the
Mhm.
hero character in that, his nickname was Fool.
Oh,
Yep. And he was the one who actually, like, he was the hero character. He was the one who actually, made stuff happen. And they actually describe about the Fool card in the tarot mythology in the movie, but that's breaking off into a whole different
Gotcha.
kind of. That goes that way. Oh yeah.
So to kind of wrap up, we're reaching the end here, the end of the actual whole show, but also the end.
Well,
of
we
What the Fuck
reached it
Care.
30 minutes ago. We added a lot of tangents.
That's
on the
fine.
back.
Yeah,
fine.
we have been.
That's why I said
We're
I
in some
titled
extra
it.
territory for sure.
I titled the stream. We're going to talk about stuff because I was like, this could go anywhere. but
We
I
did
have
pretty
like a
good
big-
with the
we did.
automotive
We did,
theme,
yeah.
though. Like as far as cutting a show.
Did you
before
add the
that.
tag tomfoolery core?
No,
Damn.
it wouldn't fit.
Okay.
But
Some of this is a
Too
nice
bad.
add-on, yeah.
like what I kind of want to wrap up with is, we touched on it very very briefly, but it also goes back to Mad
Just
Max,
the tips.
Mad Max Fury Road, like the very beginning of Mad Max Fury Road.
Yep.
The car, the Interceptor.
The black on black.
Immediately they tore it away from us.
Yep.
And an immediate emotional reaction from me anyway. I know I was like, no, I love the car. So like back to the automotive stuff and still keeping in tune with movies. What was your most upsetting car death?
A lot of times hero cars don't typically end up. I mean, Fury Road was one of those that to set the stage to George Miller come right out and just absolutely come out swinging by going, this toy, we're taking it away.
Take away your favorite toy.
Yeah, what that does is it wipes clean any preconceived notion of what we're gonna see, of what we're gonna have, of what we're gonna experience. That it starts fresh. We take the known quantity and we just toss it in the garbage.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of, I mentioned it before the show started, the 1950 Mercury that Sylvester Stallone was driving in Cobra. There's a scene, it's a gorgeous car, and there's a scene where
Stallone's Cobra was good.
There's a scene where he jumps it, and this thing, you know that is not a fake car they fuck up. And that, I took that personally.
Yep.
That car got totaled, and I was like,
that one.
oh my god.
Yep.
Like there's time, like in the Supernatural, they constantly beat the shit out of that car.
Yeah.
And that always hurts.
I already mentioned
basically any moment where there's a classic car, you know someone would want that, they would kill for a collectible of that.
Hazard, they had so many of those cars.
Yeah, because they beat the shit out of them.
They had so many of those because they were.
I say a lot of times they have multiples on these,
but they were commonplace.
Yeah.
Back then, when that show was on the air, those cars you could go to a junkyard and they were everywhere. So you just buy them, you spray them orange, you get them running again, and
throw it over a
jump.
jump.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Just push it.
Yep.
Push it.
Yeah, some people will actually find an original Dukes and Hazzard set car, and they'll just repair it, and you'll see it's all torqued and shit because it bottomed out when it hit the ground.
Frames twisted,
I would almost keep it that way because it makes it more like I wonder which jump this landed on.
Yeah. Which scene did this car come out of?
Yeah.
So it's funny. My car, you mentioned it right at the beginning. Benny the Cab.
Yeah.
Benny the Cab.
It is a drawing, right?
Yeah.
Punches the holes in his tires.
So the dip, he melts. Like he melts a boot with it, and you're like, that thing is done. And like, what if he only melted part of it? I'm like, what does that mean? And Benny drives over the dip, and it flattens all his tires.
Yep.
And he breaks his face, and he has like a missing tooth. I was like, Benny, are you ever gonna be able to fix yourself now? Because you're
a cartoon that went through dip,
and you're wrecked now. And I just always thought like, Benny's over with.
Yeah, that shoe scene fucked me up.
Yeah, that was a PG movie.
Yeah,
that was a PG movie.
Well, that you never saw.
Terrifying.
You never saw
Roger Rabbit.
You never saw cartoons like they were
killing
immortal.
cartoons.
And then it's like,
he didn't just put him out of his misery. He slowly held him in there, and he's begging, and then he just dies. Oh my god!
And he's just looking at him the whole time.
Yeah,
and he's like just pushing it down. Yeah. And then he
talks.
He's an yes. Yeah. And then he goes. He's like, he's an kid gloves, Mr. Valiant. I just love Christopher Lloyd was fucking. He was amazing.
My kids quote the Weasels a lot of the time from the scene where they're.
Stop that laughing!
Yeah, they're the scene where they're hassling.
You're gonna die like your idiot pioneer cousins. That was actually Judge Doom's line.
They're hassling Hodgkins in his house. Let's say that 5 times fast. And they're
Hodgkins' house.
Yeah, hassling Hodgkins in his house.
Hassling Hodgkins in his house. Hassling Hodgkins in his house. Hassling Hodgkins in his house.
Right, so. Yeah, they're like, one of these days you're just gonna die.
Valiant.
Yeah, stop it. Yeah, I remember Christopher Lloyd does it. You're gonna end up dead. You're gonna get pioneer guns. I love his cadence.
They have like little quotes throughout the movie that my kids really attached to, and they'll like quote them at each other, and I'm like, God, myself.
I love the weasel.
I also
I'll check this one.
Speaking of traumatizing kids, I showed them the Neverending Story the first time, and I videotaped their reaction when Falcor goes in.
Oh, you monster! You absolute monster!
I'm sitting on the couch next. I'm sitting on the couch next to him, and I'm like, I know a scene's coming up, and I just kind of sneak the phone out there, and I'm recording them, and you can see them. They have the blanket up over their
face. Are they scared of Falcor too?
Not Falcor.
I was afraid.
No, the horse.
Atreus' horse.
Thank you.
Oh, you mean
whatever his name was.
Artax.
So Artax. You know, I realized why that's such a powerful scene. Think of the score that's playing during that scene, like the very heavy organ music. It's very final, and it's like
that's all.
That scene was just brilliant.
His partner, and he's alone now.
So I'm filming the kids, and these kids at this point where they're like used to like the hair always pulls through, because today's kids movies are a lot more tame than they were in the 80s. So
and then they used like a real horse, and they lowered him down in that. That's a horse really having to deal with that shit too, so you're feeling like this horse is fucking so they're going down, and then my kids are like, they're just silent, and they're just watching, and they're on the edge of their seat, and they're just watching, and then all you hear in the video is him screaming like, and then the scene just goes black with the organ playing, and my kids are like, what was that? What happened? Like, what? And apparently, if you read the book, he can speak with Artax in his mind, and then he says all the stuff like, I'm dead, I've got it, the gloom has got me, or whatever the fuck it was. Wow. The nothing. The wolf is the nothing.
The wolf
was terrifying, and apparently, that dude almost lost an eye from that particular scene with the wolf when it bats him. Because the director apparently wanted stuff to be as realistic as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And it was
so he actually hit him with the
we're gonna rip this kid's eye
out.
So
Scarlett's asking Joe if you've had them watch The Dark Crystal.
Yes, they love The Dark Crystal.
That's another one.
Obviously, dude, that's required watching.
It's required watching. Yeah.
Labyrinth. I was all about the Labyrinth.
Yeah, the Labyrinth is cool.
Yeah, Labyrinth is awesome.
I didn't really care. I didn't really care for the Dark Crystal as much as I like the Labyrinth. I like the hybrid. The people with the puppets, I think, more, and I fell in love with Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah.
But the series that came out and how it like explained, because they throw in a lot of information. I was like, why didn't I understand the Dark Crystal and what was going on most of the time?
It's pretty
but then once I watched that show, I'm like, this is what it should have been. This is amazing. Like it lit up.
The show was pretty great.
Unfortunately, going away in it.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Maybe some asshole will bring it back.
Come
on, assholes. Please help.
Keep firing, assholes.
Keep firing, assholes.
Keep firing. God damn it.
Who hired this asshole? I did, sir. He's my cousin.
Hey, we were told to comb the desert, so we're combing it.
Yeah. We ain't found shit.
What about you guys? Found shit. Oh, man. So when you guys going to have the Rise in Mind flamethrower? The kids love that one.
Oh, my God.
Branding, marketing.
So I mentioned it before.
We're here for merchandising. Merchandising.
Man from Onward was one of mine.
Okay.
But I also had in Supernatural, the way the Impala gets destroyed is from a truck that's haunted the first time that it gets destroyed.
Okay.
That's right. It did get
destroyed. So what is Supernatural?
They ended a goddamn
ghost star, a ghost guy? Or?
Supernatural is a soap opera where there are demons possessing people.
So it's Buffy.
It's pretty much it's better than Buffy.
I watched all of Buffy, so I know that.
It's like with two brothers.
It's less silly than Buffy. It takes itself more seriously than Buffy.
Until it gets super meta, and they're going to supernatural conventions where they meet people who write Sam Dean fanfiction.
The prophet who writes the supernatural books? So my wife,
like a musical or anything in the middle.
Oh no, not at all.
My wife has binge watched it twice, and both times that she binge watched the Supernatural series, there's an episode where an author is very meta and just describes all the previous episodes and previous books, and there's a whole fan base around it.
That's funny.
Very
Yeah,
meta. And so every time they meet this author,
It was actually really funny.
you guys
every
got
time-
me there. It definitely was less silly.
every time they meet this author,
It started serious.
Yeah.
It did start very
I
serious. and
enjoyed the serious part.
they tried to make it serious, but then they realized that we're not going to be able to carry this tone, and it just veered off
Yeah.
into
So
weirdo land, and it was fantastic.
every time the author episode comes up, my wife will call me in from the other room, and the author is just this. I love the stereotypical like image that authors have. It's so funny to me because like if you look at Coraline, her dad in that one, or if you look at what's his name from it's the movie where he takes the drug that makes his brain like perfectly running all the time.
Limitless.
Limitless and
I never
Limitless.
saw that.
So he's like this.
Yep, Bradley Cooper.
He's just this dragged out looking dude. And in this one, the author is just this shut in. His hair is all shitty. He's wearing dirty clothes and a hoodie, and he's just like he has all the shades in his house drawn down. He's just at his computer being all sad with
That's
it.
not what it's like.
How about the?
Oh, it's spot on. Yes.
Leaning back to stereotypes. How about the salty bookstore owner in The Neverending Story? One and two.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the second Neverending Story, Jonathan Brandis plays the kid, and then his
Rest in
father.
peace, brother.
Yeah, hell yeah, Sequest DSV all day long. Roy Scheider, but his father
Ladybug's up in the house.
His father was played. Yes, father was played Johnny Danger. Dangerfield, Rodney Dangerfield. His father in
Johnny Danger.
that.
I like
yeah,
Rapping
his
Rodney.
father was played by John Wesley Shipp, who went on to play the Flash in the '90s version of the Flash. Believe it or not. Yep. Well, not Flash Gordon, but the running fast Flash, not not the Ming the Merciless,
All right.
Max von
The
Sydow.
other one.
But yeah, that was it's weird how all that stuff is kind of like the first Neverending Story with the twin statues where you had to
Somehow got back to
walk
Neverending
the
Story.
But yeah,
so quickly.
it made me think that like those twin
I'm
statues,
not
like
complaining. It's just funny.
the
how
Swamp of
fast we got
Sadness
back to it.
was terrifying.
The statues were
Nothing.
scary.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
two statues when they just opened their eyes and they shot out laser beams, and he saw like the face of that one knight as he tried to go through.
Yeah, his helmet visor just goes click.
chunk, and there's
And-
just the desiccated skull, and it's like,
Oh,
whoa.
Things were a little different.
I
Yeah,
wonder why I'm so nihilistic, and then I think about watching that movie
Yeah.
hundreds of
Yeah,
times.
that's why.
but the dude who played the
That's why.
Snail Rider was actually
You just got really distant.
the dude who played the Snail Rider was actually the Oompa Loompa in the Johnny Depp version
Oh,
of
that? Yeah, I knew
Really?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't know
Roy
that.
Deep.
But he's in the second
Yeah.
one, right? Or is he in the first one?
The Johnny Depp version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
No, I mean the
Oh, the first
Was he in the
Snail
Neverending
Rider?
Snail Rider. Yeah,
What?
the dude who had the super fast snail.
he's just like
Yeah.
at the beginning. Yeah.
He's an ancillary character that's just kind of there when they're all having that meeting.
At the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yes,
it reminds me of that
exactly.
the Mad Hatter moment where it's like they come into the world and there's all these freaks having a meeting.
He's all dressed up, right?
He's got like a top hat,
Yeah.
and he's like he's
Yeah.
he's like dressed.
It's been like
super
20
fancy.
years since I've seen the movie.
Roy
so.
Deep has been in so many, or is it Deep Roy? Crap. I think it's Deep Roy.
I think yeah.
He's been in so many different movies, and he's a phenomenal character actor. Awesome dude all around. But,
You're a phenomenal character.
I'm something. That's for damn sure.
Well, we're gonna keep talking about the Neverending Story because it does not end.
No, it
and
doesn't.
We
True.
should probably end the podcast, and
Yeah.
we'll pick the Neverending Story up
Never-ending podcast.
next week.
Yeah.
We all got to get back together, I guess,
Two.
again.
We
'cause I don't know how
we
this is
gotta
gonna
go
work
eat after
out,
this.
but
I mean, you know what? Maybe we're gonna have to do like a remote location kind of situation because
From a bunker. It'd be fun.
For what?
you'll just have to have us guest in from Maine and Massachusetts and everything else.
that's right, man. It's the future. We've got all the technology
We
to
do
make
have
all this stuff
technology.
happen.
Yep.
We can make our own TV shows. And speaking of which, sign us off, Mr. Viking.
Alrighty, so I had with me today Joseph D. Slater, prolific author, fantastic human being, all-around friend as well. We had Storm of Iron, aka Mike, who also has his own stream channel. Guys, go ahead and follow him. please on Twitch and watch his streams.
His streams are pretty fun. I always have a good time.
I've linked.
He's usually there for me when I'm cooking.
Hey, and if any of your Mike's guys are in here, drop us a follow so we can get affiliated. We're halfway there. Even if you don't like us, we are excited. Please just the numbers matter now.
I'm on
we want to make some emotes.
Some numbers matter up to 50 because we want to do emotes. We want to be able to
save our VODs longer.
Get you guys some raids going in. As
we're really slumming it, and
it's a slums game.
Really slumming it. We decided to go back to basics, which is fun, but we appreciate everybody who showed up today.
As always,
with us.
Rabada, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for some new people popping in.
JR Strang hanging out.
CP Sketch of Dreamers Arcade, as always.
Right here, yep. Catch me in the metaverse.
Catch me in the metaverse.
Catch me outside in the metaverse. How about that?
I apologize.
How about that?
I'm just full of the cringy shit today.
That's right. It's cringe fest.
You need a soundboard with all the
roll that beautiful bean footage. Drop those dad jokes.
All right, have a great rest of your day, guys.
Oh God, I love rolling that beautiful bean footage.
You know it.
Bye-bye for now. Woo.